Chapter 9:16. Green Flame, Secret Realm, Green Region. Fouling, according to what you said just now, does that mean I can sign a pet beast contract with a third exotic beast? Fouling's explanation not only caused Yu Haoran's gloomy expression to be replaced by ecstasy, but it also made him think of a goal that he had chosen in his previous life, but had to give up for the sake of the black bear. Of course you can. Fouling confirmed with a nod. When the time comes, let your first clone sign a pet beast contract with the exotic beast, and you'll be able to have 3 exotic beasts at the same time. Taking a deep breath and suppressing the excitement in his heart, Yu Haoran looked at Chuolong, who was floating quietly on the surface of the lake and looking at him with its small eyes. Fouling, according to the aura that Chuolong is exuding, it's now at the peak of rank 4, rank 7. How can I make it sign a pet beast contract with me? Leave it to me. After accepting the task, Fouling left Lin Huang's consciousness and appeared in front of Chuolong. Then, a mysterious yellow aura shrouded Fouling and Chuolong, preventing Yu Haoran from seeing how Fouling dealt with Chuolong. It didn't take long, only about 2 to 3 minutes. Fouling suddenly withdrew the mysterious yellow aura and quickly returned to Lin Huang's consciousness before instructing Yu Haoran. All right, you can sign a pet beast contract with it now. Yu Haoran reminded Fouling in his consciousness as he bit his finger and forced a drop of blood to drip onto Chuolong's forehead. Fouling, after completing the pet beast contract signing ceremony, I'll need a detailed explanation from you. Sure. Fouling didn't reject this request for any reason and nodded in agreement. Dripping blood, forming a seal, separating the mythical beast, and forming a pet beast space. The pet beast contract signing ceremony was successfully completed. Once the Hui dragon entered the pet space, it immediately fell into a deep sleep. Yu Haoran, who had initially wanted to get closer to the Fouling dragon to strengthen their relationship, felt extremely frustrated. At the same time, he also began to signal the Fouling dragon to give him a reasonable explanation. Yu Haoran, what is the greatest thing in the world? Fouling took a deep breath and asked. Of course it's motherly love. Without any thinking, Yu Haoran replied directly. That's right. Fouling nodded. Although the Dragon Clan is worried that the Hui dragon will rule the entire Dragon Clan after it becomes the ancestral dragon, as the mother dragon who gave birth to the Hui dragon, I cannot bear to kill the dragon that I have painstakingly nurtured for thousands of years. Some female dragons who give birth to plum dragons will secretly release their plum dragons when they give birth alone due to their strong maternal instincts. Therefore, since the primordial age until now, the number of nightmare dragons that have appeared is not small. This is also an important reason why the secret of the nightmare dragons can be passed down in the world. Nodding, Yu Haoran agreed with the Fouling dragon's explanation. After all, before his parents died, his mother's love and care for him made him fully understand the strength of a mother's love. He could also understand why they secretly released the Hui dragon. However, since the primordial age until now, the number of nightmare dragons that had appeared was not small. Why had there never been a single Hui dragon that could eventually become the ancestral dragon and rule the entire Dragon Clan? This is what I'm going to instruct you to do next. In response to Yu Haoran's question, the Fouling dragon instructed him with a solemn expression. Although many Hui dragons were lucky enough to survive due to their maternal instincts, they have a special connection with the Dragon Clan that allows the Dragon Clan to sense their presence within a certain distance. Therefore, even the Hui dragons that were lucky enough to survive would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Dragon Clan. Yu Haoran, before your cultivation reaches Emperor Wu's level, and before the Hui dragon reaches rank 2 Great Emperor, you must not expose its existence. Otherwise, you will face the pursuit of all the exotic beasts in the Tianxian continent that possess the Divine Dragon's bloodline. Even the guardian families that possess the Divine Dragon's bloodline will not let you go. In fact, even without the Fouling dragon's solemn warning, Yu Haoran knew that exposing the Hui dragon's existence would be fatal. Therefore, as he nodded to indicate that he understood, he continued to ask, Fouling, since the primordial age until now, has there not been a single primordial dragon that has reached godly realm? He needed to determine the difficulty of the Hui dragon's ascension to godly realm to decide how to nurture the primordial dragon that had signed a beast pet contract with him. As far as I know, no. The Thowling dragon shook his head and said with a regretful expression, but I know of a Hui dragon that almost succeeded in reaching godly realm, but in the end, it fell short. When Yu Haoran quickly asked, Yu Haoran, didn't you want to know how I made the Hui dragon agree to sign a beast pet contract with you? The Thowling dragon did not immediately answer Yu Haoran's question and suddenly asked a question of his own. Yu Haoran nodded. That's because the expert I once followed had a Hui dragon as his first beast pet when he was young. The Thowling dragon sounded nostalgic and regretful as he spoke. But unfortunately, the expert I followed was too arrogant. Even though he knew that the Hui dragon and the dragon clan were enemies, he did not deliberately keep the news of the primordial dragon secret. In the end, the higher-ups of the dragon clan found out about it. Although that expert's cultivation improved very quickly, and he maintained the strength of a superclass challenge, he was faced with an endless stream of dragons and demonic beasts with dragon bloodline. In the end, he was only able to hold on until Hui Long reached the peak of the second rank 9th grade martial emperor realm. Then, he was forcefully trapped by the divine dragon. Later, in order to protect the expert I followed, the Hui dragon chose to self-destruct both its physical body and astral body to kill the divine dragon. Although the Hui dragon self-destructed in the end, the expert used a special method to intercept the Hui dragon's peak 9th grade Great Emperor Realm enlightenment and a portion of the divine dragon's blood essence. Just now, I used the intercepted Emperor Realm enlightenment to make an agreement with the Hui dragon. It agreed to sign a beast pet contract with you and become your second pet beast. In fact, the Thowling dragon was hiding another secret. The Hui dragon that Yu Haoran signed a contract with had a very special relationship with the Hui dragon that had signed a contract with the expert he followed in the past. Using the special relationship between the two Hui dragons, he might be able to summon the remnant will of the expert. This was his selfishness and also one of the important reasons why he tried so hard to get both parties to sign a beast pet contract. I see. Nodding, Yu Haoran indicated that he understood and immediately turned his attention to the divine dragon's blood essence that the Thowling dragon mentioned. Yu Haoran, ever since we met, when have I ever been stingy with you? The Thowling dragon reprimanded unhappily when he heard that Yu Haoran was asking for the divine dragon's blood essence. If I still had the divine dragon's blood essence, I would have taken it out to help you improve your cultivation. I could have kept it hidden. Then forget it. Chapter 9:17. Green Flame, Secret Realm, Green Region. However, when he was about 2,000 miles away from the border between the Green Region and the Fire Region, a surprised voice came from Thowling. Thowling, what's wrong? Yu Haoran asked as he slowed down. Looks like Bai Li and Zheng aren't the only quasi-martial honorables who have entered the Green Region. Thowling explained as he pointed at the quasi-martial honorable's position. Damn it! According to Thowling's instructions, Yu Haoran used his divine sense to quickly find the quasi-martial honorable who had completed the laws. However, what the quasi-martial honorable was doing made him furious. That was because the quasi-martial exalt expert was currently chasing after 3 peak 9th grade martial saints. The reason for that was because one of the martial saints was holding a beast egg in his hand. He did not need to think too much to know that the quasi-martial honorable wanted to kill the martial saint and steal the treasure. Stop! If it was in the past, Yu Haoran would not have meddled in other people's business. However, they were now surrounded by the beasts of the Hengduan mountain range. If they could save one more martial saint, they would have more power to break out of the encirclement. They would also have one more powerful helper when they encircled the beasts of the Hengduan mountain range. Therefore, this was the first time in his life that he had violated the rules of doing things. As he sped up to save the 3 martial saints who were being chased, he shouted at the quasi-martial honorable. Seeing that someone dared to meddle in other people's business, the quasi-martial honorable instinctively wanted to attack. However, when he saw that the meddler was Yu Haoran, he immediately greeted him with a smile. So it's Master you are? Seeing that the quasi-martial honorable recognized him, Yu Haoran steadied himself and asked curiously. Seeing that Yu Haoran was confused, the quasi-martial honorable quickly introduced himself. My surname is Wu, and my name is Qing. I'm from the Wu clan of Nanhua City. Actually, Wu Qing had no choice but to lower his status and introduce himself. This was because when he rushed to the St. Horse Peak, he saw Yu Haoran using the flourishing curtain law to easily kill Shen Ao Yuan from the inherited family. Even Shen Ao Yuan, who had survived the Soul Tribulation, was not a match for Yu Haoran. How could he, who was only at the perfected level of the laws, be a match for him? What's more, Yu Haoran's voice just now contained a great deal of anger. Wu Qing was worried that he would attack her. Fortunately, Yu Haoran's next move made him secretly heave a sigh of relief. Yu Haoran greets Senior Wu. Although Yu Haoran was ashamed of Wu Qing's selfish actions, he could only suppress the anger in his heart for the time being and try his best to rope in Wu Qing. In front of an evolved Jing master, how would I dare to call myself a senior? Wu Qing hurriedly declined. Regarding this, Yu Haoran did not continue to insist. He raised his head and glanced at the three experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm, not far away. Then, he waved his hand at them and motioned for them to come over. Senior Wu, no matter how these 3 seniors offended you, I hope that you can let them go today for my sake. How about that? Yu Haoran did not point out the reason for the conflict between them. Instead, he took the initiative to resolve it for both sides. Since evolved Jing Master Yu is here, I will let the 3 of you go today for your sake. Wu Qing looked at the beast egg in the hands of the martial saint realm expert standing in the middle and said reluctantly, Many thanks, evolved Jing Master Yu. However, it was a pity that the 3 martial saints did not give Wu Qing any face at all. They only thanked Yu Haoran, who had helped them just now. This made Wu Qing's face instantly turn gloomy. Although Yu Haoran was gratified by the attitude of the 3 martial saints, the reality was that they could only let go of the misunderstandings in their hearts and work together to deal with the crisis in front of them. Therefore, Yu Haoran secretly glanced at the 3 martial saints and motioned for them to quickly thank Wu Qing for his mercy. In the end, on account of Yu Haoran, the 3 martial saints reluctantly thanked Wu Qing and gave him a way out of this embarrassing situation. Senior Wu, 3 seniors, do you know that you are in mortal danger? As long as they could get along with each other on the surface, he would be satisfied if they could work together to break out of the encirclement. Therefore, Yu Haoran went straight to the point and asked, Evolved Jing Master Yu, what do you mean by that? Wu Qing asked with a frown. Senior Wu, as a martial honorable realm expert, you must have discovered the appearance of the black python in the Azure region recently. Yu Haoran asked. Yes, I have. Wu Qing nodded. The Azure region was not large. As a martial honorable realm expert, not only did Wu Qing know about the existence of the black python, he had also encountered it before. If it were not for the large number of escaped talismans left behind by his family, he would have died at the hands of the black python. Senior Wu, do you know the true origin of the black python? Yu Haoran asked. It is a martial, honorable realm exotic beast from the Hengduan mountain range. Wu Qing answered honestly. After all, as a martial, honorable realm expert who had entered the Azure Flame secret realm later on, he had sensed the aura of the black python when countless exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range had besieged the Holy Horse Peak. Of course, he knew its true origin. Seeing that Wu Qing not only knew about the existence of the black python, but also knew about its origin, Yu Haoran could not help but frown. Under the circumstances where he knew about the black python's origin, Wu Qing did not hurry to meet up with Bailan and the Zheng cultivator to think of a way to deal with the black python. Instead, he went around snatching the treasures of his own kind. Wu Qing, who had already left a bad impression on Jian Wushuang, was obviously even worse now. However, for the sake of the big picture, Yu Haoran suppressed the murderous intent that was gradually emerging in his heart and continued to ask, Senior Wu, do you know the reason why the exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range besieged the martial artists in the secret realm? Revenge. Wu Qing answered without thinking too much. After all, for thousands of years, the Hengduan mountain range has been a paradise for adventurers. Too many exotic beasts have died at the hands of adventurers. I think they want to take advantage of the opening of the Azure Flame Secret Realm to kill all the martial artists in the Secret Realm to avenge the deaths of the exotic beasts. Yu Haoran's voice gradually became colder as the murderous intent in his heart grew stronger. Are the exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range not afraid that the news will leak out and attract the joint forces of the southern region to besiege them? Of course they are afraid. Wu Qing, who did not notice the change in Yu Haoran's tone, replied in an omniscient tone. Chapter 918. In the green region of the Green Flame Secret Realm. Senior Wu, when the Green Flame Secret Realm closes, aren't you afraid of being trapped by the strange beasts in the Hengduan mountain range? Wu Qing knew everything, yet she did not reveal a trace of fear. This caused Yu Haoran to feel puzzled. He forcefully suppressed the dense, killing intent that surged out from his body and tried his best to maintain a calm tone as he asked, "Huh?" After feeling pleased with himself, Wu Qing suddenly realized that he had revealed too many secrets. So he hurriedly closed his mouth and replied, "I have my own means to protect myself." Wu Qing, as the saying goes, every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Seeing that Wu Qing had already sensed that something was amiss, Yu Haoran didn't hide it any longer. He completely released the strong, murderous aura that he had been suppressing in his body. As he gestured for the tower spirit to use the possession technique, he sneered, "You have your own means to protect yourself. It's your own opportunity. We can't say anything but envy you. But you shouldn't hit the human warriors in the secret realm when they are facing the threat of death." At this point, Yu Haoran pointed at the beast egg in the martial sage's hand and said angrily, "You even killed the elites of the human warriors for your own selfish desires and weakened the human warriors who were fighting against the strange beasts. Master Yu, what are you doing?" Yu Haoran's sudden change of attitude made Wu Qing's expression change. At the same time, he secretly activated the escape talisman that could teleport him thousands of miles away. In response, Yu Haoran ignored them and sneered. In order to prevent the human warriors in the secret realm from being killed by you and to eliminate the hidden danger after breaking through the Hengduan mountain range's encirclement, I have to do justice for heaven. Yu Haoran, don't make it sound better than singing. Do you think you are a good person? Wu Qing, who had successfully activated the escape talisman, sneered at him with confidence. That's right. However, contrary to the expectations of Wu Qing and the other three-peak ninth-grade martial saints, Yu Haoran was not angered by Wu Qing's mockery. Instead, he nodded and admitted it. Yu Haoran, don't think that I'm a good person. I've once killed people and robbed them of their treasures for my own selfish desires. At this point, Yu Haoran suddenly raised his voice and roared. But at the very least, Yu Haoran, still know the righteousness of the people on my shoulders. I still know that if the lips are gone, the teeth will be cold. There is still a trace of humanity left in my heart. Slowly raising his arm, Yu Haoran pointed his finger at Wu Qing and asked coldly, "And what about you?" In the face of Yu Haoran's questioning of human nature, although Wu Qing did not feel guilty, she knew that she could not refute. Therefore, he stared coldly at Yu Haoran, his eyes filled with a chilling hatred, and then directly activated the escape talisman. Yu Haoran, Wu Qing, will never forget today's enmity. As the escape talisman enveloped her, Wu Qing left behind some threatening words. Wu Qing, I'm sure that you will soon forget today's enmity. Looking coldly at Wu Qing, whose body was gradually fading away, enveloped by the green energy, Yu Haoran replied calmly, "Scars of time." Then, accompanied by a light shout, an aura of the vicissitudes of time shot out from his finger that had already been aimed at Wu Qing. The escape talisman had already been completely activated, and he still wanted to use the law to deal with him. Looking at Yu Haoran, who had pointed his finger at her, Wu Qing's eyes were filled with disdain and mockery. However, when the aura of the vicissitudes of time instantly tore apart the green energy barrier formed by the escape talisman, the mockery in Wu Qing's eyes was immediately replaced by fear. When she opened her mouth to say something, her entire body was instantly split into countless pieces. Reaching out, he took the storage ring that Wu Qing had dropped and was about to say a few words to the three experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm. However, he accidentally saw some scenes from the corner of his eyes, which made him feel a little disappointed and sorrowful. It turned out that after Wu Qing entered the Green Flame secret realm, she did not use her powerful strength as a quasi-martial exalt to search for treasures in the Green Domain. Instead, she hid in a cave that was filled with spiritual qi to cultivate. Only on the 5th day after the secret realm opened did she leave the cave. Then, she specifically hunted down the cultivators who had obtained great rewards. There were about 700 human cultivators who had entered the Green Domain. Just the number of people who had died in Wu Qing's hands was close to 200. Compared to the strange beasts who hunted down human cultivators for revenge, she was even more cruel and despicable. Bah! Among the three martial saints who had also seen Wu Qing's life experience, the expert who was holding the beast egg could not help but spit softly. Shaking his head in disappointment, Yu Haoran turned around and warned the three experts at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm. Three seniors, I'm sure you already know the cruel reality of the situation. I won't say anything more. Now, I need to rush to the border between the Green Domain and the Fire Domain. I plan to unite the experts and experts of the two domains to deal with the crisis after the secret realm closes. If the three seniors want to help me, you can find me at the border between the two domains. If you have the means to escape by yourself, you can also make the same choice as Wu Qing. After giving the three martial saints a chance to decide their fates, Yu Haoran directly soared into the sky and then accelerated towards the outside of the two domains. He was in a hurry to leave not only because of Wu Qing's overly selfish actions, but also because of the important information that Wu Qing had revealed before entering the secret realm. Seventh brother, what should we do? Looking at Yu Haoran, who had soared into the sky and left directly, the slightly younger martial saint expert asked the martial saint who was holding the beast egg. Senior, I've done some research on Yu Haoran before. I know that he's actually the same as Wu Qing. He's also a selfish and treacherous person. Facing the questioning of his companion, the martial saint expert called seventh brother said with a cold smile, in my opinion, the reason why he saved us is probably because he wants us to be his scapegoat and attract the strange beasts surrounding the Saint Horse Peak so that they can successfully break out. After hearing seventh brother's explanation, the expression of the martial saint expert changed. He asked anxiously, Seventh brother, then what should we do? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The martial saint expert called seventh brother said coldly, let Yu Haoran attract the strange beasts surrounding the Saint Horse Peak. We'll take the opportunity to break out. Speaking until here, he looked at the beast egg in his hand, and an incomparable joy appeared in his eyes. To Yu Haoran, who had used all his strength, the journey of over 3,000 miles only took a few blinks of the eye. He successfully arrived at the border between the two domains. He quickly scanned the surroundings with a spiritual sense, and finally found Bai Li and the Zheng expert who were recuperating. Grandmaster Yu, what happened? Seeing Yu Haoran appear in front of him with a grave expression, the Zheng expert immediately asked nervously. Chapter 919. Green Flame Secret Realm, Green Region. Yu Haoran sat cross-legged in front of Bai Li in the powerhouse with the surname Zheng. He nodded at Yu Ling, who was looking at him in surprise. Senior Bai, Senior Zheng, we're in big trouble. Then, he told Bai Li in the powerhouse with the surname Zheng about what he had seen in Wu Qing's experience. Brother Zheng and Brother Zheng are in danger, although the two strange beasts that had entered the fire region were like them, quasi-honorable beasts with complete mastery of the laws. However, the strange beasts were much more powerful than human ancient martial art practitioners. Moreover, Both the Power King Kong ape and the Blazing Lion had inherited the bloodline of the divine beasts. They were extremely talented King Kong beasts. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's detailed explanation, the first thought that flashed through the powerhouse with the surname Zheng was that Elder Zhang and the powerhouse with the surname Zheng were in great danger. Master Yu, how many people do you need for the formation that you've prepared? Bai Li, who had also thought of the seriousness of the problem, was more concerned about the formation that Yu Haoran had used to break out of the encirclement. To be honest, the formation that I prepared is called the Four Symbols Divine Formation. When the army of the great Emperor Qin's kingdom destroyed the Four Symbols sect, I refined the Four Symbols sect's protective formation into a formation, Yu Haoran said honestly. After hearing Yu Haoran's honest reply, Bai Li and the powerhouse with the surname Zheng were pleasantly surprised. They had also heard of the Four Symbols sect's protective formation. They knew that the Four Symbols Divine Formation possessed powerful defensive and offensive abilities. If the four quasi-martial honorables joined forces to perform it, they would be able to defeat even a third tribulation martial honorable. However, soon after, they thought of Elder Zhang and the powerhouse with the surname Zheng who were trapped in the fire region. If they were unfortunate enough to be killed, they would not be able to set up the Four Symbols Divine Formation perfectly because they lacked two quasi-martial honorables. Now, we can only pray that Elder Zhang and Brother Zheng are lucky and can keep their lives. The powerhouse with the surname Zheng prayed without much confidence. After all, the reason they were able to survive the pursuit of the Black Python was all thanks to Yu Haoran, who possessed all sorts of heaven-defying methods. However, in the fire domain, there was no genius like Yu Haoran who possessed heaven-defying techniques. Yeah, looking at the barrier in front of him, Yu Haoran could only sigh and pray. Yu Haoran, don't worry. Even if you are unable to set up the Four Symbols concentration formation, you will still be able to easily break through. Thaling suddenly consoled when he sensed the heaviness in Yu Haoran's heart. Thaling, are you referring to the escape talisman in Wu Qing's storage ring? Yu Haoran knew the way to get out of the Hengduan Mountains even without Thaling's explanation. Because of the laws of time has scars, when he saw Wu Qing's life experiences, he also saw the number and quality of escape talismans that Wu Qing had obtained. That's right, Thaling confirmed with a nod. In this regard, Yu Haoran only shook his head and did not say anything else. If he were to single-handedly break through the encirclement of the strange beasts on the St. Horse Peak and escape from the Hengduan Mountains, he could also easily leave by relying on the secret technique of the witch ancestors' bloodline inheritance. However, he had to ensure the safety of Hiruyu and the others who were close to him, as well as protect the lives of most of the warriors in the secret realm. For this, he had to use the Four Symbols concentration formation. It was not that his character had suddenly become kind, nor was it that he had suddenly become merciful. It was because those experts who were being chased by the strange beasts were his backup plan to encircle and annihilate the strange beasts in the Hengduan Mountains. Senior Zheng, how much time do we have left before the two domains merge? Yu Haoran asked after taking a deep breath and adjusting his emotions. Less than an hour and 40 minutes. After thinking for a while, the expert surname Zheng gave a specific time. Senior Zheng, here are a few top-notch medicinal pills for recovery. I hope they can help you completely recover to your peak condition before the secret realm closes. After receiving the expert surname Zheng's reply, Yu Haoran took out 8 medicinal pills and gave them to Bai Li and the expert surname Zheng. Bai Li and the expert surname Zheng did not refuse. This was because they knew very well that the faster they recovered, the better they could face the upcoming crisis. After all, after the two domains merged, they still had to deal with the Power King Kong apes and Blazing Lions in the fire domain. After Bai Li and the expert surname Zheng received the medicinal pills, Yu Haoran stood up and flew away from the border of the two domains. Seniors, I have some personal matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving for a while. On a mountain peak 1,000 miles away from the border of the two domains, Yu Haoran slowly landed and used his divine thought to check the situation of the entire mountain peak. After confirming that there was no danger, his divine thought touched the mark in his knowledge sea, and his body directly entered the victor. Thaling used the strongest time acceleration ability. "I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for a while," Yu Howren instructed Thaling, who was standing in front of the victor. "Okay." Without asking why Yu Howren suddenly wanted to cultivate in seclusion, Thaling directly opened the victor and helped him set the time acceleration of 3 months in the victor space for 1 hour in the outside world. "Thaling, thanks." Yu Howren thanked him and directly entered the victor. This time, Thaling did not follow Yu Howren into the victor. Instead, he called out his second divine thought and had him search for some rare treasures that many cultivators in the Azure domain could not find according to the guidance of his divine thought. Time flowed like water, and 1.5 hours passed very quickly. After indicating for his second divine thought to return to the victor, Thaling stopped the victor's time acceleration ability and quietly waited for Yu Howren to come out of seclusion. "How was your harvest?" Thaling hurriedly asked as he watched Yu Howren walk out of the victor. His cultivation and physical body did not have any breakthroughs, but his aura was even more profound than before. "It was all right," Yu Howren replied indifferently. Using the mark in his knowledge sea, Yu Howren returned to the mountain peak and headed straight for the border between the two domains. At this moment, Bai Li and the expert surnamed Zheng, who had already recovered from their injuries, also stood up and looked at the barrier in front of them. They were waiting for the barrier to shatter when the two domains finally merged. After nodding at Bai Li and the expert surnamed Zheng, Yu Howren took a deep breath and activated the ancestral witch's body to deal with any dangers that might arise after the barrier disappeared. Time passed by slowly. A scorching aura gradually rose in the originally cold Azure domain. As the scorching aura rose, a few cracks suddenly appeared on the sturdy barrier in front of them. "Yu Howren, hurry up and retreat 1,000 meters." Thaling in his knowledge sea hurriedly reminded him just as the cracks appeared on the barrier between the two domains. "Senior Bai, Senior Zheng, Yuling, Zonghua, hurry up and retreat 1,000 meters." After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Howren immediately retreated while calling out to Bai Li and the other three. "Thaling, what's going on?" Chapter 920. Green Flame, Secret Realm. The border between the two realms. The 5 elements reinforce and subdue each other. Although it can fuel fire, it can also fuel the fire. Thaling explained solemnly as he looked at the increasing number of cracks on the barrier. When the barrier is completely broken, an extremely hot flame will form within 1,000 meters of the border between the two realms. Yu Howren, this kind of flame can directly burn a quasi-martial venerable who has passed the body calamity. Sizzle. As Yu Howren sucked in a breath of cold air, he could not help but pray. He prayed that the warriors from the fire domain who had not been killed by the 2 exotic beasts would not gather at the border between the two realms. Boom! Just as Yu Howren was praying in his heart, the barrier, which was already filled with countless cracks, was instantly shattered by a powerful force. Accompanied by intense explosions, countless indistinguishable white flames appeared. Even Yu Howren, who was standing 1 kilometer away, could clearly feel the intense pain of being burned. Even the witch ancestor's body, which had the strongest physical body in the world, could feel the burning aura, let alone Bai Li and the others. Therefore, without Yu Howren's reminder, they immediately retreated 1,000 meters. At this moment, an extremely painful scream suddenly came from the formless white flames. Immediately looking up, Yu Howren saw a blazing lion, which was over 30 meters tall and 80 meters long, enduring the burning of the flame at the border between the two realms. As it cried out in pain, it desperately retreated, tried to get out of the range of the flame. Unfortunately, even though the blazing lion was a powerful exotic beast that was proficient in the law of fire, it could not face the flame that even a quasi-martial venerable who had passed the body calamity could not face. In the end, it was completely burned into nothingness by the flame. Yu Howren, only this blazing lion, who has comprehended the law of fire and has reached the level of a quasi-martial venerable, can hold on for such a long time. If it were any other exotic beast, I'm afraid it would have been burned into nothingness by the flame before it could even cry out. Fowling sighed with a grave expression. Yu Haoran nodded in agreement. Haoran, just as Yu Haoran was about to observe the situation of the fire domain through the transparent flames, Ryu's surprised voice suddenly rang in his ears. Hurriedly looking up, Yu Haoran's face immediately revealed a joyful smile. Other than seeing Ryu and the black bear, he also saw the old man surnamed Zhang and the expert surnamed Zheng standing beside Ryu. Brother Zhang, are you all right? Elder Zheng hastily called out in pleasant surprise when he saw Elder Zhang and Elder Zheng. As long as Elder Zhang and the powerhouse Zheng were fine, they would be able to work together to set up the Four Symbols concentration formation. Then, they would not have to fear the Four Symbols concentration formation that could defeat a third tribulation quasi-martial venerable and be surrounded by the strange beasts of the Hengduan Mountains. Grandmaster Yu, Brother Zheng, Junior Sister Bai were fine. Seeing that Yu Haoran and the others were safe and sound, Old Man Zhang also happily called out to them. Fowling, when will the flames in front of us disappear? The disappearance of the barrier between the two domains meant that the most precious soul spiritual fruit in the Green Flame Mystery Land was about to appear. It also meant that the Mystery Land would soon close. Therefore, he urgently needed to pass on the Four Symbols concentration formation to Elder Zhang and the others so that they could use the last bit of time before the Mystery Land closed to practice. With your witch ancestor's body, you can now enter the fire domain through the flames. Fowling, who had been observing the changes in the temperature of the flames, reminded him with a smile. Seniors, please wait for a moment. After reminding Bai Li and the expert surnamed Zheng, Yu Haoran directly stepped into the flames. Yu Haoran's sudden action caused the seven people's expressions to change. However, the distance of 3,000 to 4,000 meters was only 5 to 6 steps for Yu Haoran, who was more than 700 meters tall. Therefore, just as Ryu and Elder Zhang were about to stop him, Yu Haoran had already successfully appeared in front of them. Haoran, you scare me to death. Looking at Yu Haoran, who was slowly shrinking and finally returning to his original height, Ryu couldn't help but pat her chest and rejoice. In the face of Ryu's concern, Yu Haoran only nodded, then turned to look at Elder Zhang and the expert surnamed Zheng and asked with a puzzled expression, Seniors, how did you defeat the Fiery Lion and the Power King Kong Ape? Although the Fiery Lion and the Power King Kong Ape were only in the realm of perfected laws, with their strong physical bodies and the inheritance of the divine beast bloodline in their bodies, any one of them was not something that Elder Zhang and the expert surnamed Zheng could deal with together. Therefore, he was very puzzled that the two of them could keep their lives unharmed and force the Fiery Lion to the border between the two domains. After hearing Yu Haoran's question, Elder Zhang and the expert surnamed Zheng immediately looked at Ryu. After taking a closer look at Ryu, Yu Haoran found that although the aura on her body was a little stronger than before she entered the secret realm, she had only broken through 2 to 3 small realms at most. And this kind of increase in strength was simply impossible to threaten the two powerful exotic beasts with perfected laws. Haoran, I obtained a treasure in the fire domain. Seeing Yu Haoran's gaze, Ryu explained happily and directly showed him the origin of the treasure. The fiery flame, ranked 11th on the exceptional flame ranking. Fiery flame. After seeing the scorching flames emitted from Ryu's body, Yu Haoran and Fowling in his sea of consciousness couldn't help but shout in shock at the same time. When Yu Haoran shouted out the origin of the exceptional flame, Elder Zhang couldn't help but sigh. Master Yu, it's all thanks to Miss Ryu obtaining the fiery flame in time. Otherwise, not only would Brother Tseng and I have died in the hands of the two exotic beasts with perfected laws, but even the hundreds of experts in the fire domain would have died in the siege of countless exotic beasts. After that, he recounted everything that had happened in the fire domain in detail. The story was similar to the Azure domain that Yu Haoran was in. The only difference was that Yu Haoran had appeared in the Azure domain at the last moment, causing most of the martial warriors who had entered the Azure domain to either die in the encirclement of the exotic beasts or die in the hands of the greedy Wu Qing. On the other hand, Hiryu had obtained the fiery flame on the third day of entering the fire domain. Furthermore, she had relied on the opportunity to obtain the fiery flame to directly injure the large Power King Kong ape and the raging flame lion, saving the lives of most of the martial warriors in the fire domain. Yu Haoran asked the old man surnamed Zhang where the large Power King Kong ape's corpse is. After hearing old man Zhang's explanation, Thowling in his sea of consciousness quickly reminded him. There was no need to ask. Yu Haoran also knew that Thowling wanted to extract the blood essence from the large Power King Kong ape's body so that he could use an even more powerful transformation secret technique in the future. Haoran, here you go. Hearing Yu Haoran mention the large Power King Kong ape's corpse, Hiryu, who was already prepared, waved her hand. Chapter 921. Green Flame's Secret Realm, Fire Domain. Just as I expected, Thowling nodded in satisfaction as his consciousness quickly swept across the large Power King Kong ape's corpse. Yu Haoran, this large Power King Kong ape is different from the two large Power King Kong apes you've seen before, because not only is its grade higher, its strength is stronger, and it has also successfully activated the ancient King Kong bloodline in its body. As for the divine beast King Kong, it was one of the few powerful divine beasts in the ancient times that could contend against the ancestral shamans in terms of physical body. Thowling, what do you mean? Thowling's explanation just now made Yu Haoran feel that he deliberately asked for the large Power King Kong ape's corpse, not just to let him use a stronger transformation secret technique. It's very simple. Use the King Kong ape's blood essence and blood to further stimulate the memories left behind by the 8 ancestral shamans in your body. Use this to obtain the 12 heavenly capital killing God Great formation that the 12 ancestral shamans jointly cast. Thowling revealed his true thoughts. Will it work? Yu Haoran questioned. After all, to be able to successfully stimulate the energy and memories of the 4 ancestral shamans in the Azure Domain Valley, other than the stimulation of the ancient Black Dragon's bloodline, there was also the fatal danger he was facing. Don't worry, I'm confident that I could do it, but I still need to prepare some things. Thowling replied confidently. All right, then you can do as you see fit. Regarding this, Yu Haoran did not pursue the matter any further. He only waved his hand and kept the large Power King Kong ape's corpse into the victor, then thanked Hiryu. After that, he told Old Man Zhang and Rancor Zhang about Bai Li's speculation about the actions of the strange beasts in the Hongduan Mountains. After hearing Yu Haoran's explanation, Old Man Zhang and Rancor Zhang were not surprised at all, because they had already considered this step a long time ago. Grandmaster Yu, what do you plan to do? Old Man Zhang looked at Yu Haoran expectantly. Other than chasing after the heavily injured Blazing Lion, he also hoped to meet up with Yu Haoran and discuss the matter of breaking out of the encirclement. After all, Yu Haoran gave people the feeling that he had an inexhaustible trump card. Turning around to look behind him, Yu Haoran noticed that the flames were gradually dying out. He waved at Bai Li and the others before informing the second avatar and Victor to record the usage of the 4 symbols mind-focusing formation using 4 blank jade slips. When Bai Li and the others arrived, Yu Haoran took out the 4 jade slips his second clone had prepared and handed them to Bai Li and the others. This is the 4 symbols formation of the 4 symbols sect. The old man, surnamed Zhang, who had interacted with the 4 symbols sect more than once, recognized the origin of the formation with a single glance. That's right, it's the 4 symbols concentration formation. After nodding and confirming Elder Zhang's surprise, Yu Haoran instructed with a solemn expression, "Seniors, in the next 40 minutes, make the best use of your time to practice the formation in the jade slips. After that, use the last 20 minutes to practice with the formation. When the time comes, whether we can successfully break out of the encirclement of the beast will depend on your familiarity with the operation of the formation. Don't worry, son-in-law. This subordinate will definitely not let you down. Elder Zhang clenched the jade slips in his hand tightly and promised as a subordinate for the first time. Nodding in satisfaction, Yuhaoran originally wanted to give a few more instructions. However, the Thaling in his sea of consciousness suddenly reminded him that the final treasure of the Green Flame's secret realm, the soul fruit he had to obtain no matter what, had already appeared in the fire domain. All right, seniors, make the best use of your time to practice. After reminding Elder Zhang and the others, Yuhaoran directly shot into the sky and headed straight for the depths of the fire domain, according to the Thaling's instructions. As for He Ruyu and Yu Ling, who were interested in Yuhaoran, they ignored Yuhaoran, who had left, and looked at each other. "How should I address you, little sister?" With a fake smile on her face, He Ruyu took the initiative to attack. "Auntie, my surname is Bai and my name is Yu Ling. I come from a Bai clan of the Central Domain." The intelligent Yu Ling's counterattack was more ruthless, more accurate, and more deadly. Her expression slightly changed. Hiryu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger that had just emerged in her heart. Then, she reached out to take off the special mask on her face and smiled at Yu Ling. "Little sister Yu Ling, although you're not that old, why do you look like an old woman with blurred vision?" Seeing Hiryu, who had revealed her true appearance, Yu Ling's expression couldn't help but change. She finally understood why Yuhaoran took care of Hiryu so much. Originally, the woman in front of her, who had concealed her true appearance, was a peerless beauty who was much more outstanding than herself. In terms of appearance and figure alone, Yu Ling knew that she was definitely no match for Hiryu. However, if she wanted to attract a man's attention and win his heart, it wasn't enough to rely on her appearance and figure alone. Thus, Yu Ling forced herself to calm down, and a smile reappeared on her face. However, her voice was filled with mockery and ridicule. "Big sister, you can't blame me for being wrong. It's mainly because you're too secretive, and it's very easy for others to misunderstand you. Is that so?" In the face of Yu Ling's counterattack, Hiryu put on her special mask again and chuckled lightly. "It's all right, as long as that person knows that I'm not a secretive person." Under Thaling's instructions, Yuhaoran unleashed all of his power and soon arrived in front of a volcano. He hovered in the air in front of the volcano and carefully sensed the temperature of the volcano. He discovered that even if he didn't use any defensive measures, the flames within the volcano wouldn't be able to harm him. Thus, he didn't hesitate in the slightest and stepped directly into the volcano. "Yuhaoran, there's someone here." Just as Yuhaoran stepped into the volcano, Thaling, who had been using his divine consciousness to check the situation of the volcano, suddenly warned him. When he heard Thaling's warning, Yuhaoran couldn't help but frown. According to Elder Zhang's introduction, all the ancient martial art practitioners in the fire domain had been gathered and were all gathered in a dense forest filled with spiritual energy. They were waiting for the secret land to close so that they could work together to break out of the encirclement. Thus, the powerful cultivators who had appeared in the volcano were either ancient martial art practitioners who were unaware of the changes in the fire domain or quasi-martial honors like Wu Qing. Thus, Yuhaoran immediately spread out his divine consciousness to investigate and discovered that the situation was exactly the same as what he had encountered in the Green Domain. The only difference was that this time, there were two quasi-martial honors who were killing people and robbing them of their treasures. "Yuhaoran, are you going to attack?" Thaling asked with a smile as he watched the two quasi-martial honors chasing after the high-grade fire crystals that had been condensed from the volcano. "Not interested." Chapter 922. In the fire domain of the Green Flame Secret Realm. Back in the Green Domain, the reason why he chose to rescue the three-peak 9th grade martial saints was that he wanted to preserve the strength of the secret realm as much as possible. In this way, he could increase the success rate of breaking out of the encirclement. Afterwards, he could use the kindness of saving them to gather the three-peak 9th grade martial saints and exterminate the strange beasts in the Hungduan mountain range together. However, the three-peak 9th grade martial sages did not appear even when the barrier between the two domains was broken. This made him feel extremely disappointed. At the same time, The sense of responsibility that had emerged in his heart with great difficulty also disappeared without a trace. Therefore, in the face of the law of the jungle that was playing out in the volcano, he did not have a trace of pity in his heart. There was only calmness and indifference. Yu Haoran's cold and ruthless decision made Thowling in the sea of consciousness nod his head involuntarily. In the long years of his life, he'd witnessed too many tragedies of people who were merciful but didn't have a good ending in the end. So he didn't want Yu Haoran to become the type of person who worried about the world first and enjoyed the happiness of the world last. As if he did not see the massacre that was happening around him, Yu Haoran stepped into the interior of the volcano. Then he saw that in the boiling lava, on a floating rock, there was a spirit tree that was only the size of a palm. However, it was crazily devouring the surrounding spirit chi. Yu Haoran, the sole spiritual fruit tree, will bear 3 spirit fruits, which are respectively targeted at the 3 souls in the soul. Looking at the top of the palm-sized spirit tree with 3 cherry-like spirit fruits, Thowling reminded him with a serious expression. Therefore, in the next fight for the spirit fruits, all 3 spirit fruits must be obtained. Otherwise, the soul spiritual fruit will not only not be a spirit fruit that can improve the soul, but also become a fatal poisonous fruit. I know, even without Thowling's reminder, as an expert in alchemy, Yu Haoran also knew the importance of the 3 soul spiritual fruits. After careful observation, he found that the soul spiritual fruit was about 5 minutes away from ripening. He turned around and looked at the people who were watching him. You have 3 seconds to leave this place immediately. Otherwise, the boiling magma will be his burial ground. Yu Haoran coldly threatened as he swept his gaze across the crowd. In the end, his gaze stopped on the 2 quasi-martial saints. Ouch! After hearing Yu Haoran's threat, a quasi-martial honorable who did not know him and had never seen him before could not help but cry out. Then, he sneered and planned to teach Yu Haoran a lesson. However, his companions pulled him back in time and reminded him softly. His name is Yu Haoran. He's from the Emperor Qin. Yu Haoran, Grandmaster Yu. After hearing his companion's reminder, the quasi-martial exalted expert's expression changed, and he took a few steps back. Then, he hurriedly bowed and apologized. Grandmaster Yu, I was blind to have offended you. I hope you can let me live on account that this is my first offense. Scram, Yu Haoran coldly reprimanded. I'll leave now. The Lin expert quickly nodded and retreated. After retreating to the exit of the volcano, the Lin expert, who was afraid that Yu Haoran would suddenly change his mind, immediately soared into the air and fled the volcano with all his might. Goodbye, Grandmaster Yu. The other quasi-martial exalted expert cupped his fists and gestured. Then, he turned around and left the interior of the volcano. As for the remaining martial kings and martial saints, even though they were envious of the spirit's spiritual fruits that were about to ripen, they did not dare to stay any longer. One by one, they cupped their fists and left. Yu Haoran, how do you feel? After all the cultivators had left the interior of the volcano, Thowling, who was in his mind, asked with a smile. How do I feel? Yu Haoran asked confusedly as he stared at the spirit's spiritual fruit tree on the rock. Prestige. Thowling reminded him with some dissatisfaction. You don't need to fight. Just by accumulating prestige, you can scare off all the competitors and easily obtain 3 spiritual fruits. How does it feel to subdue the enemy without fighting? It feels great. After thinking carefully, Yu Haoran spoke his truest thoughts. Since it feels great, then I hope that you can stay true to your heart and continue to carry forward your previous style. I hope that your prestige can shake the entire Tianxian continent. I hope that when everyone hears your name, Yu Haoran, their first feeling will be reverence. Yu Haoran's reply made Thowling happy. He could not help but encourage him. I will. Nodding, Yu Haoran forcefully suppressed the boiling blood in his body and replied. Because of Thowling's encouragement, he suddenly thought of the top 10 loose cultivator experts who had shaken the Tianxian continent in his previous life. As one of the top 7 sects in the Tianxian continent, the Yushu Temple must be very powerful. However, when faced with the pressure of the top 10 loose cultivator experts, they chose to back down more often than not. The reason was the strength of the top 10 Luz cultivator experts and their prestige for killing decisively. The experts of the Yushu Temple did not dare to offend them easily. If he could reach or even surpass the prestige of the top 10 Luz cultivator experts, then not only would he receive the same treatment as the top 10 Luz cultivator experts in the future, but he would also reap more unexpected benefits. For example, only the top experts could enter the dual domains of heaven and earth. Just as Yuhaoran was immersed in the fantasy of prestige, Thowling in his sea of consciousness suddenly warned him, "Yuhaoran, be careful." Without any hesitation, Yuhaoran quickly retreated to avoid the sneak attack. At the same time, he searched for the target of the sneak attack with his vision and divine sense. Then, he saw a tiny black shadow heading straight for his heart. First rank 5th stage Emperor Realm Rattlesnake. After discovering that the assailant was only a first rank 5th stage Emperor Realm Rattlesnake that contained a huge amount of poison, Yuhaoran immediately stopped retreating and looked coldly at the rattlesnake that was about to reach his heart. Even if he maintained his normal height, the body of an early 2nd stage Martial Emperor Ancestral Shaman was almost equivalent to a low-level Sage stage defensive artifact. Therefore, even if the rattlesnake attacked him with all its might, it would not be able to hurt him at all. As for the huge amount of poison contained in the rattlesnake, it posed no threat to him, who was proficient in the way of poison in his previous life. Slap! The rattlesnake that was about to reach his heart was immediately repelled by his strong body. At the same time, Yuhaoran quickly reached out his left hand and pinched the rattlesnake's vital point with lightning speed. Just as Yuhaoran was about to crush the rattlesnake to death, Thowling in his sea of consciousness warned him again, "Yuhaoran, be careful." This time, he was also on guard against fatal danger. There was no time to dodge or defend, so Yuhaoran instinctively activated the Ancestral Shaman's body. He planned to use the method of recovering the Ancestral Shaman's body to increase his defense and weaken the damage caused by the sneak attack. Chapter 923. Green Flame, Secret Realm, Fire Region. Pain. The moment his abdomen was hit, a heart-wrenching pain almost made Yuhaoran faint. This kind of pain was different from when the Yu clan was ambushed by the assassins. It was different from the pain of the spirit-devouring soul. This time, it was the pain of his physical body being torn apart after the fusion of his soul power and origin power. Yuhaoran could not help but roar in anger from the intense pain and the anger from a sneak attack. The huge palm slapped the assassin who was unable to retreat in time because his abdomen muscles had clamped down on his weapon. Boom! The huge palm seemed to have transcended the limits of time and space and instantly appeared on the assassin, who had just let go of his weapon and was about to retreat. The strong slap directly slapped the assassin into the hard wall of the volcano. The moment the huge palm slapped the assassin, Yuhaoran reminded the Thowling in his mind, "Thowling, lend me a hand. Watch me." As it nodded, the Thowling immediately mobilized the power of law and began to forcibly expel the remaining power of law in Yuhaoran's body. As the remaining power of law was quickly expelled by the Thowling, the law of endless vitality that he had comprehended automatically absorbed the pure spiritual energy around the volcano and began to repair the meridians and blood vessels in his body that had been torn by the power of law, as well as his severely injured internal organs. At the same time, Yuhaoran hurriedly swallowed a few top-notch elixirs and used the law of endless vitality to speed up the recovery of his injuries. "Who are you?" As he pulled out the sword from his abdomen, Yuhaoran looked coldly at the assassin who had jumped out from the cracks in the rocks. This was a very thin and small old man who was no more than 5 meters tall. He looked to be in his 70s. Hee. In the face of Yuhaoran's question, the old man only laughed coldly. He glanced at the sword in his hand, and then at the soul spiritual fruit that was about to ripen. Then, he disappeared into the volcano in an instant. The law of void. After the other party instantly disappeared, the untraceable aura made Yuhaoran realize that the other party was a quasi-martial saint comprehending the law of nothingness. Therefore, while secretly raising his vigilance. He immediately signaled Thaling to track and lock onto the enemy's position. Without needing Yu Haoran's reminder, the angry pagoda spirit immediately used its divine sense secret technique and enveloped the entire volcano with an all-encompassing net. But the end result was nothing. Yu Haoran, that person has already left. Through the heavenly network's telepathic thoughts, Thaling finally found out that the other party had indeed left. When the first attack failed, he immediately fled. The method of the other party's sneak attack was very similar to that of an assassin, but Yu Haoran knew that the other party was definitely not an assassin. This was because the other party did not emit any killing intent. It was the kind of aura that would allow one to view death with equanimity. Yu Haoran looked at the high-grade Sage Realm sword in his hand. He hoped that he could obtain some information about the other party's origin from this sword. But the end result was still nothing. Yu Haoran, this person's origin is definitely not simple. Thaling reminded him gravely when he saw the frowning Yu Haoran. A perfected law of void would not be able to escape the detection of my divine sense. But I only sensed the other party's presence when he launched his sneak attack. This means that other than the law of void, the other party must have a top-notch secret treasure that can conceal his aura. Thaling, judging from his appearance and aura, this person should be between 200 and 300 years old. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Haoran looked at the sword in his hand and deduced. He's already so old, but his cultivation has only just advanced to the perfected law of nothingness. This means that the other party either has ordinary potential or is of a lowly background. But since he can possess a secret treasure that even your divine sense cannot detect and casually throw away a high-grade Sage Realm sword, this means that the other party is very rich. At this point, Yu Haoran spoke with a cold smile on his face. It seems that I already know the other party's origin. Who is it? Thaling asked with a murderous look. The thief god sect's true rank cannot be determined. The cold smile on Yu Haoran's face was gradually replaced by a smug smile. The thief god sect was a mediocre sect. It was the sect with the most overlapping names in the Tianxin continent. According to the current records circulating in the world, there are more than 30 thief god sects in the 5 regions of the Tianxin continent. However, Yu Haoran knew that those thief god sects were fake. They could be said to be branches of the thief god sect. The true thief god sect's strength and foundation were not inferior to a first-rate sect. However, due to the limited number of people in the sect and the influence of their style of doing things, not only was the thief god sect not well known, but no one knew where the thief god sect's real headquarters was. Fortunately, under the lead of the Void Spirit Mouse in his previous life, he had accidentally broken into the thief god sect's headquarters and entered the thief god sect's treasury. However, it was a pity that the thief god sect's treasury had 3 venerable realm weapons and 1 emperor realm weapon. The venerable realm and emperor realm weapons emitted by the weapons made him stay in the treasury for less than 3 seconds before he had to take the initiative to withdraw. However, in those 3 seconds, he saw a scene that he would never forget in his life. Level 4 spirit stones from level 1 to level 9 were piled up in the corners of the treasury like stones by the roadside. More than a dozen wooden shelves were casually placed with hundreds of thousands of level 3 spirit stones from level 1 to level 9. In the depths of the treasury's first floor, there was a box of even more precious level 2 spirit stones. This was only the collection on the first floor of the treasury. In the beginning, before there was a gap between him and the sect, he had wanted to go to the thief god sect and exchange some of their storage-type weapons with them. But now, solemnly putting away the Saint Realm upper-grade sword into the victor, Yu Haoran's gaze turned to the soul's spiritual fruit that had stopped absorbing the pure spiritual chi and had begun to emit the aura of strengthening the soul. Thaling, pay attention to the situation around you. Yu Haoran reminded Thaling in his sea of consciousness as he stretched out his giant palm to pick the ripe soul spiritual fruit. Don't worry, Thaling would not make the same mistake twice. Therefore, when he was chasing the little old man from the thief god sect, he did not withdraw the inescapable net secret technique that he had used. The purpose was to help Howren successfully obtain the soul spiritual fruit. Just when Howren's giant palm was less than 5 meters away from the soul spiritual fruit, the boiling magma suddenly calmed down. Then, a fiery red shadow rushed directly toward his outstretched left palm. In this regard, Howren did not panic at all. The left palm that was originally grabbing the soul spiritual fruit directly stretched out and then fiercely slapped the red shadow. At the same time, his free right hand quickly stretched out and went straight for the soul spiritual fruit floating on the rock. Screech! Sensing Howren's two palms attack and grab, the red shadow that was about to collide with Howren's left palm suddenly screeched. Then, an identical red shadow separated from its body and quickly blocked the right palm that was grabbing the soul spiritual fruit. Chapter 924. Green Flame Secret Realm, Fire Domain. Looking at the red shadow that blocked Howren from seizing the soul spiritual fruit, Fowling could not help but sneer in the sea of consciousness. Then, he began to form a seal with his 10 fingers. As his 10 fingers formed a seal, the divine thought that originally covered the whole volcano began to shrink rapidly. Boom! Boom! As the left and right palms collided with the two red shadows, a strong roar suddenly came from inside the volcano. With the strong roar, Howren, who maintained the wizard's body of more than 700 meters, was directly shaken 2 steps back. Of course, in the face of the powerful physical strength of the wizard's body, the two red shadows were also directly shaken into the magma. Howren continued to lure them out. Fowling, who had shrunk 2/3 of his net, immediately reminded after seeing the red shadows that were shaken into the magma by Howren. Okay, Howren, who also knew the origin of the red shadows and what Fowling wanted to do, responded excitedly. Then he stretched out his hands and quickly grabbed the soul spiritual fruit floating on the rock. Screech! Seeing that Howren was still unwilling to give up the soul spiritual fruit, the red shadow that was shaken into the magma let out a sharp screech. Then, after rushing out of the magma again, it directly split into 2 identical red shadows. 2 of the red shadows blocked the hands that were grabbing the soul spiritual fruit, while the other one went straight to Howren's face. In this regard, Howren had no intention of dodging at all. He just slapped away the 2 red shadows with both hands. Just as the 3rd red shadow that launched a fatal attack towards him was less than a meter away from his face, it suddenly froze in midair. At the same time, the 2 red shadows that were shaken back into magma by his hands were also frozen in place when they were about to enter the magma. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Howren seized the 3 soul spiritual fruits. After putting the 3 soul spiritual fruits into 3 different elixir bottles, Howren carefully observed the red shadows that were frozen in front of him by Fowling's divine thought. How should he put it? If the red shadow didn't move, it would look like a cute little tarsia. However, when it struggled to bare its sharp teeth, it looked very ferocious and terrifying. What a pleasant surprise! What a pleasant surprise! Fowling exclaimed excitedly as he used his powerful divine sense to absorb the 3 red shadows into the victor. Give me one, Howren ordered as he put the pill bottle containing the soul fruit into his storage ring. You don't have a fire attribute physique. What use do you have for a fire spirit beast? After hearing Howren's command, Fowling asked in dissatisfaction. He then used Victor to forcefully shatter the red shadow's consciousness. Then, the 3 red shadows slowly began to shrink. Finally, they turned into 3 dark red crystals that emitted extremely high temperatures. This kind of crystal was called fire crystal. It was a kind of refined stone buried deep in the magma. After being soaked in fire attribute spiritual chi for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years, and under very special circumstances, a special kind of crystal had developed consciousness. The fire crystal transformed by the fire crystal beast had many uses. However, there were 3 most important ones. The first one was to refine weapons. Its effect was not inferior to that of the highest grade 9 Heaven Star obsidian. It was one of the few top materials in the Tianxian continent that could be used to refine weapons of the Emperor realm. The second one was to set up a formation. With the fire crystal transformed by the fire crystal beast as the core of the formation, it could be used to set up a heaven-level formation that was not inferior to the 36 Big Dippers. This was also the main reason why Thaling used his divine sense to kill the fire crystal beast. The third one was to increase the cultivation and strength of a fire attribute warrior. The 3 fire crystals Thaling had just obtained were enough to help a martial sage to break through 3 to 4 small realms. However, his purpose for asking for the fire crystals was not to refine weapons, nor to increase his strength and cultivation. He planned to use them to refine pills. In his previous life, he had obtained a special pill formula from a relic. It was as high as the 9th grade of the 3rd rank. The fire crystal transformed by the fire crystal beast was only one of the 17 supplementary herbs. Although he could not refine them with his current alchemy Dao, it would not be difficult to achieve this goal with the speed of his first avatar's improvement in alchemy Dao. Okay, I'll save one for you. Hearing Yu Haoran's request for the fire crystal beast to refine pills, Thaling did not continue to question or refuse. Looking at the soul's spiritual fruit tree on the floating rock withering quickly, Yu Haoran sighed softly and turned to leave the volcano. However, he did not immediately return to the border between the 2 regions. Instead, he relied on the ancestral wizard's body and the law of time's mark to hunt exotic beasts that were at the peak of the 7th grade of the 4th rank. After all, when the Green Flame Secret Land was closed, all living things that did not belong to the Secret Land would be forcibly expelled by the rules of the Secret Land. Then, the exotic beasts that had left the Secret Land, under the command of the quasi-honorable exotic beasts of the Hunduan Mountains, would soon become powerful opponents that besieged them. Therefore, killing these powerful exotic beasts in advance would reduce the pressure of breaking out of the encirclement. Time passed by second. When there were only 20 minutes left before the Green Flame Secret Land closed, Yu Haoran used the Law of Time's mark to kill a mountain raccoon at the peak of the 5th rank of the 9th rank. After that, he signaled Thaling to disperse the possession technique and headed straight to the border between the 2 regions. He returned to the border in advance because he needed to pass the formation flag of the 4 symbols concentration formation to Elder Zhang and the others. He wanted them to familiarize themselves with the formation flag before the Secret Land closed. When Yu Haoran arrived at the border between the 2 regions, he was shocked by the scene in front of him. This was because there were at least 400 to 500 warriors of different realms standing in the open space between the 2 regions. "Prince Consort, you're back." Elder Zhang hurriedly greeted Yu Haoran, who quickly landed in front of him. "Elder Zhang, this is?" Yu Haoran asked in confusion as he pointed at the group of nearly 500 people in front of him. "Prince Consort, these are the surviving warriors of the Fire Domain. They are grateful to Miss He for saving their lives and are willing to work together to break out of the encirclement." Elder Zhang explained with a smile. It was originally a good thing to have so many masters and experts working together to break out of the encirclement. However, Yu Haoran felt a little uncomfortable in his heart. This was because he realized that his personal charm was not comparable to Hiruyu's at all. The warriors she casually saved did not need to show any goodwill at all. They were grateful and willing to follow her. What about himself? Yu Haoran, people are different. There are many kinds of personal charms. Thaling comforted him with a smile when he sensed Yu Haoran's change in mood. As the leader of the Echo Mountain Bandits, Hiryu knows how to use the carrot and stick. She also knows how to win people's hearts. You're not as good as her in this aspect. Chapter 925. Green Flame, Secret Realm, Fire Domain. Thaling, thank you. Thaling's consolation made Yu Haoran's discomfort disappear in an instant. Then he smiled and took the 4 symbols attention formation flag from Victor's second clone. Senior Zheng, you have a wood attribute physique. The blue dragon in the 4 symbols attention formation belongs to the East. The East is dominated by wood, so it's just right for you. Yu Haoran instructed as he handed the formation flag that could condense the blue dragon to the expert surnamed Zheng. Therefore, you will be in charge of the four symbols attention formation and be the main force in breaking out of the encirclement. The expert surnamed Zheng, who felt a great sense of responsibility, took the formation flag and nodded solemnly. Then, he used his divine sense to start a simple, sacrificial refining. Senior Zheng, not only do you have a metal attribute physique, but you also have a bloodthirsty temperament. You are just right for the white tiger that dominates slaughter in the West. Therefore, you'll be in charge of assisting Senior Zheng in breaking out of the encirclement. Yu Haoran instructed as he handed the formation flag that could condense the white tiger to the expert surnamed Zheng. After taking the white tiger formation flag, the expert surnamed Zheng nodded and used his divine sense to start a sacrificial refining of the formation flag. Senior Zheng, not only do you have an earth attribute physique, but you are also the strongest person present. Therefore, the defense of the four symbols attention formation will be handed over to you. Yu Haoran instructed with a solemn expression as he handed the formation flag that could condense the black tortoise to the old man, surnamed Zhang. Although the blue dragon's attack power was important in breaking out of the encirclement of thousands or even tens of thousands of strange beasts, the key to success in breaking out of the encirclement was the defense that could withstand the joint attack of tens of thousands of strange beasts. The expert surnamed Zhang, who knew that his responsibility was even greater, nodded solemnly as he took the black tortoise formation flag. Senior White, although the five elements mutually reinforce and subdue each other, and the wood element can temporarily replace the fire element, the requirements of the four symbols spirit concentrating formation are rather strict. Therefore, after condensing the vermilion bird, you only need to assist Senior Zhang in his defense. The greatest threat in the entire four symbols spirit focusing formation was by Li, whose attribute was incompatible with the vermilion birds. Yu Haoran was afraid that she would make a mistake and cause them to fail in breaking out of the encirclement. At that time, I will let the hundreds of martial artists that have entered the array to assist you. I got it. Li knew that she was the weakness of the entire formation, so she humbly accepted Yu Haoran's advice. While she focused on refining the formation, her attitude towards the martial practitioners from the Fire Realm became much gentler. Hiruyu, Yuling, come over here. Yu Haoran beckoned to Hiruyu and Yuling when he saw the four experts refining the array flags. These are two first-grade, fourth-grade tracking talismans. They can allow you to move thousands of miles instantly. When Hiruyu and Yuling came to his side, Yu Haoran secretly gave them the two escape talismans that he had obtained from Wu Qing and instructed them with his divine thought. If the four symbols God focusing formation is broken, immediately use the escape talismans to escape from the Hengduan mountain range. Haoran, what about you? Hiruyu secretly held the escape talismans that Yu Haoran had given her. She felt both sweet and worried at the same time. With Haoran's means, even if he leaves the Hengduan mountain range openly, those strange beasts won't be able to harm him at all, as they were not using divine thought to communicate. Yuling also heard Hiruyu's concern and immediately mocked her disdainfully. I don't know if Haoran was blind in the past. How could he fall for an idiotic woman like you? Faced with Yuling's mockery, Hiruyu, who did not want to reveal her shrewish nature in front of Yu Haoran, did not know how to refute Yuling's mockery. In response, Yu Haoran, who had a bad feeling, quickly dodged. As time went by, the time of the secret realm closing was getting closer and closer. The atmosphere at the scene gradually became heavy. Even Hiruyu and Yuling, who had been fighting openly and secretly, stood quietly in the middle of the crowd. For seniors, the moment you leave the secret realm, you must activate the four symbols God focusing formation immediately. Otherwise, no one can predict the final outcome. There were still 10 seconds before the secret realm closed. Yu Haoran reminded them one last time. Prince Consort, don't worry. We won't let you down. Old man Zhang nodded and promised. Although Bai Li and the other two did not say anything, their determined expressions showed their attitude. 3. 2, 1. Everyone at the scene was secretly counting down to the closing of the secret realm. When they counted down to 1, everyone at the scene suddenly felt a repulsive force. Perhaps it was because there were too many people at the scene. The repulsive force of the secret realm did not take effect immediately. After waiting for a second, everyone at the scene was transported out of the secret realm at the same time. Just as everyone left the secret realm, they immediately heard the sounds of fighting, as well as the energy waves formed by origin power, soul power, and laws. Old Man Zhang and the other 3, who were completely immersed in the formation, did not pay attention to the situation at the scene at all. They successfully activated the 4 symbols God focusing formation immediately. Just as countless gray gases surged out of the formation, Yu Haoran saw the 3 martial saints he had saved before being torn to pieces by dozens of rank 4 peak 9th grade sage beasts. However, the martial saint holding the beast egg in his hand immediately revealed a look of regret when he saw the hundreds of powerhouses that instantly appeared on Holy Horse Mountain and activated the formation. He regretted that he had measured the stature of a gentleman with his own yardstick and rejected Yu Haoran's invitation. Thowling, what's this? Just as Yu Haoran was about to withdraw his gaze, he unexpectedly discovered that the beast pet that had fallen in mid-air had disappeared. For some reason, Yu Haoran instinctively glanced at his sea of consciousness and discovered that Thowling had used some unknown method to secretly store the beast egg into the victor. Thowling did not expect Yu Haoran to react so quickly. Seeing that his little action had been discovered, he immediately smiled embarrassedly and explained, "This is a gift for you." "Thowling, thank you." Yu Haoran did not notice Thowling's loss of composure. After thanking him, he used his mind to control the formation and observe the situation outside the formation. However, when he saw that the Holy Horse Mountain was surrounded by an endless number of beasts outside the formation, he was so shocked that he even forgot to take in a breath of cold air. It was impossible to see exactly how many beasts there were. This was because other than the countless beasts surrounding the Holy Horse Mountain, there were also flying beasts flying in mid-air, as well as beasts attacking from underground. All cultivators in the formation listened to my command. Faced with the attacks of so many beasts, even with the protection of the 4 symbols God focusing formation, Old Man Zhang would not be able to withstand the combined attacks of so many beasts. Therefore, Yu Haoran immediately reminded him loudly. Chapter 926. Sorry, I have something urgent to deal with, so I can only update 4 times today. Hunduan Mountains, St. Horse Peak. He had long known that the person controlling the core of the array was Yu Haoran. Therefore, all the martial practitioners in the formation could not selfishly channel their origin energy and soul energy into the body of the divine beast vermilion bird, which was dozens of meters tall. Without needing Yu Haoran's reminder, Bai Li, who had obtained a huge amount of energy, used the formation to transfer it into the black tortoise that Old Man Zhang had formed. Then, the black tortoise fused into the array. Boom! 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 Just as the black tortoise entered the array formation, under the command of the high-tier exotic beast, countless exotic beasts used their demonic powers to unleash their martial skills and bombarded the array formation, causing countless cracks to appear in the space of the 4 symbols divine concentration array. Fortunately, Old Man Zhang, who had the support of several hundred experts, managed to withstand the exotic beast's first wave of attacks in the end. Senior Zheng used the Divine Dragon's roar and the Divine Dragon's tail whip to tear a hole in the enemy's defense as soon as possible. Just as the 4 symbols concentration formation successfully withstood the first round of attacks, Yu Haoran immediately instructed the expert surnamed Zheng, who was condensing the blue dragon. Roar! After receiving Yu Haoran's reminder, the Zheng powerhouse conjured a 100-meter-long blue dragon and roared furiously at the thousands of strange beasts blocking the array formation. Along with the roar, at least 500 to 600 exotic beasts below the peak of the 3rd rank of the 4th rank in front of the formation had their souls directly shattered. Exotic beasts below the peak of the 4th Tier 7 stage were completely mesmerized. At the same time, he swung his 100-meter-long tail, directly sweeping away the thousands of stunned exotic beasts. After that, with the blue dragon's constant roars, Yu Haoran controlled the array formation to quickly fly away from the St. Horse Peak. Great! With just a single round of attacks, they had successfully broken through the encirclement of tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of beasts. Bai Li, who was able to observe the situation outside the formation at all times, could not help but rejoice. Senior White, the real danger has yet to arrive. Raise your guard immediately. However, just as Bai Li was rejoicing, Yu Haoran's warning sounded in her mind. Got it, Bai Li quickly replied, but at the same time, she immediately raised her guard. Everyone, the true danger is not over yet. You still need to make the best use of your time to recover your origin energy and soul power so that you can provide support at any time. After warning Bai Li, Yu Haoran immediately reminded the hundreds of experts and experts enveloped by the formation. The real danger in the Hengduan mountain range wasn't the countless rank 4 and rank 5 exotic beasts, but the 12 quasi-venerable realm exotic beasts that had yet to show themselves. Although Yu Haoran did not know why they did not appear in the first wave of attack, he knew very well that in order to prevent the encirclement from leaking the news, they would definitely intercept them before they left the Hengduan mountains. Faling, have you found them? After successfully breaking through the St. Horse Peak, with the speed of the blue dragon condensed by the Zheng expert, he would only need 10 breaths to successfully leave the Hengduan mountains. However, 5 breaths had already passed, and those quasi-venerable realm exotic beasts still had not appeared. This made Yu Haoran feel more and more uneasy. He could not help but ask Faling, who had been using his divine sense to track down the whereabouts of those quasi-venerable realm exotic beasts. No, my divine sense is about. Faling shook his head and replied to Yu Haoran with a puzzled expression. He immediately sensed a true martial venerable realm energy from the depths of the Hengduan mountains and quickly reminded him loudly. Yu Haoran, inform everyone to immediately overdraw their origin energy and soul power and remind them of the defense of the 4 symbols concentration formation. That's because the other party is using a special formation to condense the terrifying energy of a true martial venerable. Quick, everyone, immediately overdraw 1/3 of your origin energy and soul power to help Senior Zhang and Senior White withstand the other party's strongest attack. After hearing Faling's reminder, Yu Haoran hurriedly shouted himself hoarse to remind everyone in the formation. After that, he also mobilized all of his origin energy and soul power and quickly channeled them into the body of the vermilion bird that Bai Li had condensed. Yu Haoran's reminder at the top of his lungs, as well as his action of taking the lead to inject his origin energy and soul power, immediately made everyone present realize that the true danger had arrived. Other than a few selfish people who only used a quarter of their origin energy and soul power, everyone else listened to his instructions. Boom! Even though the formation was reinforced by everyone's origin energy and soul power, it did not last long under the terrifying attack of a martial venerable before it was completely shattered. Everyone, we are less than 5 kilometers away from the exit of the Hengduan Mountains. Whether or not we can escape with our lives depends on your methods and fate. As the formation was shattered by the terrifying power of a martial venerable, not only did Elder Zhang and the other 3 leave their divine beast bodies, but everyone else who was trapped by the formation also fell into the grass below. Fortunately, the formation neutralized more than 90% of the martial venerable's power, and no one died. Yu Haoran waved his hand and put away the damaged formation flag. Then, he caught the unconscious old man Zhang and reminded everyone at the scene. After hearing Yu Haoran's reminder, everyone continued to overdraw their origin energy and soul power and desperately escaped to the outskirts of the mountain range. You guys go too. Yu Haoran hurriedly reminded Yu and the others who were surrounding him. Indecisiveness at a critical moment could lead to fatal accidents. Therefore, Even though Hiryu was worried about Yu Haoran, she immediately rushed to the outskirts of the mountain range after catching Elder Zhang. Faling, can you continue to use the possession technique while maintaining the ancestral witch's body? Yu Haoran asked murderously. Of course. Faling, who knew what Yu Haoran wanted to do, immediately used the possession technique while replying. After receiving Faling's reply, Yu Haoran directly activated the ancestral witch's body while taking out the purple rod. When his height exceeded 700 meters, he forcefully stomped on the ground with his legs and soared into the sky as he roared. Skyward Strike. The purple rod, which had lengthened and thickened, was like a giant pillar that supported the sky as it fiercely smashed into the depths of the mountain range. When he was a martial ancestor, the power of the Skyward Strike was close to that of a quasi-martial venerable. In fact, it was close to that of a quasi-martial venerable who had perfected the laws. When he was a martial king, the power of the Skyward Strike barely reached that of a quasi-martial venerable who had perfected the laws. Now, when he used the Skyward Strike with the strength of a martial royal realm physical body, Yu Haoran believed that it would at most reach the strength of a tribulation quasi-martial venerable. However, when he truly used the Skyward Strike, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the power of the Skyward Strike had reached the peak of a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable. Yu Haoran, the reason why the ancient monkey emperor was able to lead the demon clan in the 4 wastelands and 8 regions was because of his strong physical body that was close to that of the ancestral witch. Then, coupled with his indestructible Skyward Strike, he defeated the 18 demon emperors of the demon clan. Faling felt the power of the Skyward Strike and sensed the surprise in Yu Haoran's emotions. He tried his best not to affect the Skyward Strike, as he explained in detail. Chapter 9:27. In the Hengduan mountain range, when they sensed the powerful might of a second tribulation quasi-martial venerable in the staff technique, the quasi-martial venerables in the depths of the mountain range, who were originally planning to intercept and kill the fleeing cultivators, immediately gathered together and continued to use the formation to unleash martial skills of the martial venerable realm. Unfortunately, the formation that was hastily unleashed barely reached the level of a third tribulation quasi-martial honorable. Therefore, in the face of the increasingly powerful staff technique, the combined martial techniques of the 11 quasi-martial honorable beasts in the depths of the mountain range only ended in a draw. It was precisely because of this delay that the fleeing martial artists successfully escaped from the Hengduan mountain range. At the same time, Yu Haoran also sped up and escaped from the Hengduan mountain range with the help of the strong rebound force from the collision between the staff technique and the martial technique. Elder Hui, this is troublesome. Looking at the hundreds of martial artists who had successfully escaped from the Hengduan mountain range, a giant green wolf the size of a mountain said worriedly to a dark gray fox that was less than a meter tall. Seeing Yu Haoran quickly escape from the Hengduan mountain range, the gray fox known as Elder Hui smiled and comforted him. Brother Green Wolf, don't worry. Unless the top 7 forces of the central region take action, the 3 forces of the southern region will definitely not dare to invade the Hengduan mountain range. Although that's the case, there are many powerhouses from the central region among the human martial artists that we've encircled this time. Green Wolf, who did not relax a little because of the gray fox's comforting words, still reminded him worriedly. Don't worry about the people from the central region. Hearing Green Wolf's worries, the gray fox continued to smile and comfort him. When we decided to encircle the human martial artists in the secret realm, I've already contacted the Green Hill Fox clan. They will be in charge of neutralizing the danger from the central region. That's great, Green Wolf said in surprise. If the powerhouses from the central region did not take action, then even if the 3 forces of the southern region joined forces to attack, with the Hengduan mountain range's thousands of years of accumulation and the various means that Elder Hui had set up, they would be able to turn defeat into victory. Yu Haoran escaped from the Hengduan mountain range with the help of the strong, rebounding force formed by the staff and martial arts. After Faling informed him that the quasi-venerable realm beast in the mountain range did not pursue them, He used his divine thought to search for Hiryu and the others who had escaped from the Hungduan Mountains. Finally, he found them in a forest about 1,300 miles away from the mountain range. At this moment, the awakened old man Zhang was currently persuading Bai Li and the others to return to the mountain range to rescue Yu Haoran, who was blocking the quasi-exalt realm beast for everyone, with the aid of the peak healing pills he had fed them beforehand. However, judging from his furious expression and Hiryu's icy gaze, they knew that Bai Li and the others were unwilling to take the risk and return after successfully escaping from the abnormal beast's encirclement. In this regard, Yu Haoran was not angry, but he could not help but feel disappointed. Senior Zhang Ruyu. Yu Haoran quickly landed in front of old man Zhang and greeted him with a smile. Haoran, that's great. You're fine. Seeing Yu Haoran appear in front of him safe and sound, the coldness in Hiruyu's eyes was instantly replaced by surprise. He was so emotional that he almost cried. Yu Haoran smiled and nodded at Hiryu. He looked at the unusually pale old man Zhang and asked with concern, Senior Zhang, are you all right? Thank you for the timely healing elixir, Prince Consort. I only need to recuperate for a while, and I'll be able to recover completely. Old man Zhang, who was also surprised, replied emotionally. Seniors. Yu Haoran cupped his hands at Bai Li and the others before greeting them indifferently. Then, he raised his head and glanced at the people around him. He discovered that the number of people who had escaped from the mountain range had decreased by nearly 2/3. He clearly understood the fickleness of human nature. After that, he adjusted his complicated emotions and asked Bai Li, Senior Bai, now that the Green Flame's secret realm has closed, I'm sure you and Yuling will return to the central region soon. After bidding farewell to Master Yu, Yuling and I will immediately leave the southern region and return directly to the Bai clan. She knew that her selfish actions had overturned the small boat of friendship that she had formed with Yu Haoran. However, Bai Li did not have much regret in her heart. She replied with a calm expression. After hearing Bai Li's reply, Yu Haoran took out a blank jade slip from his storage ring. Then, he used his divine thought to record in detail the matter of the strange beasts surrounding the human cultivators in the Hungduan mountain range, as well as the various consequences that might follow in the jade slip. Yu Haoran handed the jade slip he had just recorded to Bai Li and requested, Senior Bai, according to the route you're taking on back to your family, you should be passing by the Guliang family. I hope that you can hand this jade slip to the Guliang family's patriarch. Don't worry, Master Yu. I'll definitely pass this jade slip to Guliang Mingquan personally. Bai Li promised as she took the jade slip from Yu Haoran's hands. Thank you. After nodding and thanking her, Yu Haoran took out another blank jade slip and recorded the same information in the new jade slip. Then, he handed it to the expert surnamed Zheng. Senior Zheng, although I don't know where you plan to go next, I hope you can personally make a trip to the Ren clan and pass this jade slip to the Ren clan's patriarch. Don't worry, Master Yu. I'll head to the Ren clan right away. Perhaps because he felt a little guilty about his selfish actions, the expert surnamed Zheng cupped his fists and bade farewell after receiving the jade slip. I'll have to trouble you, Senior Zheng. Nodding, Yu Haoran watched as the expert surnamed Zheng soared into the sky and headed straight for the Ren clan, which was located at the border between the southern region and the eastern region. When the expert surnamed Zheng's figure could no longer be seen, Yu Haoran retracted his gaze and looked at the expert surnamed Zheng with a hesitant expression on his face. Prince Consort, after I recover from my injuries, I'll immediately rush to Xianyang City to meet the Emperor and explain the benefits of the exotic beast encirclement of human cultivators. The hesitant expression on Yu Haoran's face let Elder Zhang know what his concerns were, so he hurriedly said in a considerate manner. Nodding, Yu Haoran continued to take out a blank jade slip. In a personal tone, he requested the Emperor Qin to send troops to encircle and annihilate the exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range. Then, he handed the jade slip to Elder Zhang and said politely, Thank you for your hard work, Senior Zhang. Prince Consort is too polite. This is what I should do. After receiving the jade slip, Elder Zhang hurriedly said, Ryu, return to Lonling City immediately. Yu Haoran turned his head to look at Hiryu, who had been watching him, and ordered with a serious expression. Okay. Although she was reluctant, Hiryu knew that she had to show her gentle and well-behaved side in front of Yu Haoran. Moreover, she also knew what Yu Haoran planned to do next. Therefore, she planned to return to Lonling City and ask Shi Fangling to lend a hand to Yu Haoran. After all, not only was Shi Fangling's cultivation unfathomable, her background was also mysterious and extraordinary. Chapter 928. In the southwest direction of the Hengduan mountain range, there was a mountain peak about 1,000 meters high. After bidding farewell to everyone, Yu Haoran went to the peak of the mountain and sat cross-legged on a piece of green rock at the peak. He used medicinal pills to recover the origin energy and soul force he'd used to break out of the encirclement as he waited for a reply from the three great powers of the southern region. Yu Haoran, what do you plan to do if the three major forces choose to stand by and watch in the end? For Thaling, who had the divine sense of a ninth-grade martial honorable, a distance of 300 miles was like 3 meters. He could clearly see everything that was happening in the depths of the Hengduan mountain range. Those who were sleeping, cultivating were cultivating, and those who were making breakthroughs were making breakthroughs. The quasi-martial honorable realm beasts in the depths of the Hengduan mountain range were not panicking at all. This made Thaling gradually feel that something was not quite right. In the end, he could not help but ask, 3 days. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran raised his head and looked at the depths of the Hengduan mountain range. His tone was as calm as water. In the jade slip that I entrusted to the three major forces, I only gave them a deadline of 3 days. If they do not reply after 3 days, I will immediately leave the Hengduan mountain range and rush to the next training location. As for the consequences that the southern region may suffer in the future, it has nothing to do with me, Yu Haoran. I will not feel guilty in my heart. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, Thaling thought for a while. But in the end, he did not say anything more. He only returned to the top floor of Victor and used the several divine beast blood essences that he had secretly prepared to refine the formation flag that could activate the energy memory of the ancient witch. The sun rose and set. 3 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Standing on the green rock, Yu Haoran looked in the direction of Emperor Qin's Xianyang city with a look of deep disappointment in his eyes. Since they did not send any experts and there was no reply, it meant that Emperor Qin would not participate in the encirclement of the beasts in the Hengduan mountain range. In that case, there was no need for him to stay and wait. Therefore, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized his soul power and elemental energy to leave the mountain peak and head to the next training location. However, the Thaling in his sea of consciousness suddenly stopped him. Yu Haoran, wait a moment. Thaling, is there anything else? Yu Haoran asked without dispersing the soul force and elemental energy that he had just used. Thaling, who was holding 3 small red flags in his hand, appeared in Yu Haoran's sea of consciousness. He gestured for Yu Haoran to sit down cross-legged and asked, Yu Haoran, do you still remember the prestige I mentioned to you in the volcano in the fire domain of the Green Flame secret realm? Of course I remember. Yu Haoran dispelled the soul power and elemental energy that he had just gathered and sat down cross-legged again. The reason why I invited the 3 great powers to encircle and exterminate the strange beasts in the Hengduan mountain range was not only to eliminate the disaster this matter might bring to the southern region, but also to raise my prestige through this matter. Seeing that Yu Haoran had already realized and was thinking of ways to raise his prestige, Thaling nodded his head approvingly and asked, Then, do you know the difference between prestige and prestige? Prestige is intimidation. Prestige is fame. There are similarities between the two, but there are also essential differences. Yu Haoran replied after thinking for a while. Then, do you know the difference between prestige and luck? Yu Haoran's answer made Thaling even more satisfied, so he continued to ask. After thinking carefully, Yu Haoran shook his head to indicate that he did not know. Luck is destiny. The stronger a person's luck is, not only can they turn misfortune into blessings and have everything go smoothly, but it is also the foundation to reach the peak of martial arts in the future. And prestige is one of the important methods to raise one's luck. At this point, Thowling suddenly changed the topic and asked, Yu Haoran, do you know why Gu Liangzi challenged the armless swordsman Gu Quan? Isn't it to test his martial arts and to prepare for the hidden dragon battle in 9 months? Yu Haoran subconsciously replied, yes and no. Thowling nodded and then shook his head as he explained. Testing one's martial arts is only a small part of it. Gu Liangzi's real intention is to use the competition with Gu Quan to raise his prestige among the younger generation. Otherwise, why would he choose to withdraw when he was challenged by Gu Quan afterwards? That's because the competition between Yu and Zixuan completely destroyed the prestige battle that he had carefully prepared for months. This is also the important reason why he wanted to kill you. Thowling, just tell me directly, what do you want me to do? Prestige and luck. Although he was very interested in Thowling's reasoning, he was more interested in Thowling's real purpose. I want you to kill all the quasi-martial, venerable exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range alone. Thowling said word by word after being silent for 3 seconds. Thowling, can you stop joking? Thowling's suggestion made Yu Haoran jump up in shock, his face filled with disbelief. Although the skyward staff technique displayed with the help of the ancestral witch's body had the strength of a peak second tribulation quasi-martial venerable, it was limited by his own cultivation. He was at a disadvantage of being unable to accurately lock onto the opponent's tracks, making it impossible for him to fully utilize the advantage of the skyward staff technique. If he used the possession technique to display the laws of time has a scar and prosperity ends, he would be able to easily kill 11 quasi-martial venerable exotic beasts. However, there were countless exotic beasts in the depths of the mountain range that were at the 4th rank and above. He was afraid that they would not allow him to easily break into the depths of the mountain range, let alone let him face 11 quasi-martial venerable exotic beasts alone. If he used the laws of time has a scar and prosperity ends to deal with the exotic beasts, not only would it affect and restrict the use of the 2 laws, but it would also exhaust all of Thowling's spiritual energy in the end. He would not be able to directly kill his way into the depths of the mountain range, let alone kill the quasi-martial venerable exotic beasts. Therefore, he could not understand why Thowling wanted him to kill the 11 quasi-martial venerable exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range alone. Yu Haoran, not only was I not joking just now, but I will also make you swear by the heavenly ways rules. Swear that you will kill all the quasi-martial venerable exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range, and use your spiritual energy as the price to form a law blood oath. Reason. Sensing that Thowling was not joking, Yu Haoran quickly calmed down and asked, the moment the blood oath is formed, the heavenly ways rules will announce the ins and outs of the entire matter to the world. It will allow your name to quickly spread throughout the entire Tianxian continent. The increase in your reputation and fortune will be second only to the hidden dragon battle in 9 months. What about the benefits? Reputation and fortune were invisible and untouchable powers. It would take a certain amount of time for the benefits of reputation and fortune to show. Chapter 929. Hearing Yu Haoran's request for tangible benefits, Thowling thought for a while and said, first of all, after killing the 11 quasi-venerable exotic beasts, the low-level exotic beasts in a mountain range will completely submit to you. Then, you will be able to take all the rare treasures in the Hengduan mountain range. Secondly, you will receive the blessings from the countless exotic beasts in the Hengduan mountain range. It will bring unimaginable benefits to your future training, cultivation, and physical body. Lastly, and most importantly, after completing the blood oath, you will receive the reward from the heavenly way. At this point, the tower genie suddenly raised its voice and tempted. Yu Haoran, the 3 benefits I just mentioned are enough for your cultivation to break through to the martial royal realm. It will also allow your physical body to reach the peak of the 3rd grade martial royal realm. You may even reach the 4th grade martial royal realm. More importantly, the reward from the heavenly way and the blessings from the heavenly way will bring unimaginable improvement to your understanding of the endless rules. After hearing the temptations described by Thaling, Yu Haoran was completely tempted. The hidden dragon battle was divided into the youth competition and the youth competition. The youth competition was a competition between the geniuses between the ages of 16 and 18. The youth competition was a competition between the geniuses between the ages of 18 and 25. Unfortunately, he could only participate in the youth competition. However, due to the limitations of his cultivation time, he did not have an obvious advantage over his opponents of the same age, let alone those geniuses who had reached the martial saint realm at the age of 24-25 in the inherited family. After all, more than a year of being a servant had wasted too much of his precious cultivation time. How could he shine in the hidden dragon rank competition? How could he break into the top 100 with the blessings from the divine dragon of fate? Then, he would have to desperately improve his cultivation and strength before the hidden dragon battle began. Only then could he stand out among the geniuses of the same age. Only then could he challenge stronger opponents, fight for a higher ranking, and obtain more blessings from the divine dragon of fate. A plan. While he was tempted, Yu Haoran directly asked Thaling about the method to exterminate the beasts in the Hungduan Mountains. The plan is divided into 3 steps. Thaling, who had already planned it out in his heart, hurriedly explained in detail. After listening to Thaling's plan, Yu Haoran closed his eyes and thought for a while. Finally, he nodded and agreed to the plan. Then his consciousness touched the imprint in his sea of consciousness, and his body directly entered the victor. Thaling, are you sure that there won't be any danger when you use the formation to stimulate the memory of the wizard's power? Yu Haoran asked worriedly as he looked at Thaling, who had completely trapped him with 3 blood-red formation flags. Yu Haoran, don't worry. After using the 3 blood-red formation flags to trap Yu Haoran in a triangular formation, Thaling took out 3 elixir bottles. Then, he poured the blood of the ancient divine beast that he had collected from the elixir bottles onto the formation flags, and comforted him confidently. Perhaps the process of stimulating the memory of the wizard's power may seem dangerous, but I guarantee that there won't be any danger to your life. After the blood of the 3 types of beasts had been poured onto the 3 formation flags, Thaling comforted him and began to form seals with his 10 fingers. After forming a total of 108 seals and imprinting them onto the 3 formation flags, he suddenly roared, "Activate the formation!" Then, a large amount of blood suddenly gushed out from the 3 formation flags, and the blood quickly drowned Yu Haoran. After Yu Haoran was completely out of sight, Thaling's face became extremely solemn. Dragon appear. After the blood that flowed out from the 3 formation flags filled the entire formation space, Thaling pointed his finger at the formation and whispered. Then, a deafening dragon's roar came from the formation. Toad appear. When the dragon's roar sounded, Thaling continued to point at the formation and whispered. This time, although there were no roars of beasts coming from the formation, an endless amount of demonic aura emerged. Toad appear. When the demonic aura filled the entire formation, Thaling did not put down his finger and continued to whisper. Croak, croak. Accompanied by the crisp croak of the toad, the formation that was originally filled with demonic aura was suddenly replaced by golden light. The dragon god is the main attacker, the Taowu is the main attacker, and the golden toad is the main attacker. I don't know if these 3 types of ancient divine beasts that the wizard ancestor hates the most can finally awaken the remnant memory of the wizard ancestor. Looking at the formation that was filled with golden light, Thaling muttered to himself in an unconfident tone. Thaling, what kind of method is this? Not long after the dragon's roar sounded, Yu Haoran found in the sea of blood that submerged him, there was a giant dragon whose head he could not see at all. The giant dragon roared and rushed directly to his forehead. This made Yu Haoran panic, and he could not help but ask in a loud voice. You, Howren, according to the previous agreement, now you can only watch. You can't ask, and you can't leave the formation. He absolutely could not explain the principle of the formation's operation. Otherwise, Yu Howren would definitely hate him afterwards, so Thaling could only remind him foolishly. However, considering that the 3 divine beasts and the 8 wizard ancestors would use his body as a battlefield, the impact of the power formed by the tearing would definitely bring him unbearable pain, so Thaling immediately reminded him with concern. Yu Howren, if you suffer unimaginable pain, you can choose to seal your 6 senses. Thaling, tell you quickly what is going on. The pain that would be formed would actually require him to seal his 6 senses. After hearing Thaling's reminder, Yu Howren knew that Thaling must be hiding something from him, so he continued to ask. In this regard, Thaling chose to remain silent. No, this is the divine beast Swanee, which represents endless slaughter. Just when Thaling chose to remain silent, a divine beast that exuded endless killing intent also quickly rushed toward him. Yu Howren looked frightened and shouted involuntarily. Just as he shouted involuntarily, a sharp pain that tore his heart apart made him frown and immediately check the situation in his body. Then, he found that in his sea of consciousness, 3 wizard ancestors that were more than 1,000,000 meters tall were fighting with a giant dragon of unknown length. Another sharp pain came from his abdomen. Yu Howren looked at the 3 wizard ancestors that were also more than 1,000,000 meters tall and were fighting fiercely with the divine beast Swanee. Under the protection of the formation, although the battle between the wizard ancestors and the divine beast would not hurt his sea of consciousness and Dantian, the impact of the power formed by the battle made him suffer double pain on his body and divine soul at the same time. At this moment, he finally knew why Thaling wanted him to seal his 6 senses. Chapter 9:30. When the 3rd divine beast, the golden toad, also rushed into his body and fought with the remaining 2 ancestral wizards at the position of his heart, Yu Howren's face could not help but contort from the continuous impact of the 3 waves of pain. Especially when the golden toad was fighting with the 2 ancestral sorcerers, the impact of the battle power on his heart, meridians, blood vessels, and internal organs made him know that he had to seal his 6 senses immediately. Otherwise, his divine soul would not be able to withstand the impact of the intense pain and would eventually collapse completely. When Yu Howren was about to seal his 6 senses, he accidentally saw an ancestral sorcerer in his sea of consciousness using a special law to integrate with his 5th skills. After that, he directly blasted a huge bloody hole in the dragon's huge body. Suddenly, he understood the pain in his heart and instinctively stopped the action of sealing his 6 senses. Fight! The sudden epiphany in his heart made his strength increase by more than 3 times. This also made him make a risky decision. He gritted his teeth and took out dozens of level 4 spirit stones and a large number of top healing elixirs from his storage ring. First, he swallowed all the healing elixirs into his body to reduce the pain. At the same time, he held 2 level 4 spirit stones in his hands, intending to use this opportunity to increase his strength. He separated his consciousness into 3 parts, focusing on the battle in his sea of consciousness, heart, and Dantian respectively. In the beginning, he was often affected by the intense pain in his body, causing him to be unable to concentrate. However, as his consciousness was gradually immersed in the learning and understanding of the martial arts, the pain felt by his consciousness became lighter and lighter. Time passed by second. Yu Howren, who was immersed in the epiphany, did not realize that the 2 level 4 spirit stones in his hands had not only turned into white powder, but also the dozens of level 4 spirit stones in front of him. Most of them had become dim. What he did not realize was that when he was immersed in the epiphany of the martial arts, for powerful auras rose from his body. Thaling, who was also shielded by the formation, did not notice the changes in Yu Howren's body. He thought that Yu Howren had sealed his 6 senses because he could not withstand the intense pain. When an ancestral wizard in the Sea of Consciousness was severely injured by the giant dragon using the divine dragon's tail whip technique, The battle that had lasted for nearly an hour gradually began to come to an end. Among the three battlefields, the first one to decide the outcome was the Heart battlefield, the battle between the Golden Toad and the two ancestral sorcerers. Although the Golden Toad was also a famous mythical beast in ancient times, its strength and reputation were mostly reflected in its poison. As the strongest body in ancient times, the ancestral wizard's body was immune to most poisons. As for the 12 strongest ancestral sorcerers, they were the bane of the Golden Toad. Therefore, in the face of the joint attack of the two ancestral sorcerers, the Golden Toad was at a disadvantage from the beginning. In the end, he could only hold on for less than 10 moves before his head was smashed by one of the ancestral sorcerers. The ancestral sorcerer's head then turned into a strong blood essence that directly merged into his heart, meridians, blood vessels, and internal organs. With the help of the huge energy contained in the Golden Toad's transformed energy, Yu Haoran, who had awakened from his epiphany, suddenly realized that the various organs in his body had been strengthened by at least 10 times. Compared to the strengthening effect of more than 10 organs in his body, the pain caused by the impact of the internal organs during the battle between the Golden Toad and the ancestral sorcerers was definitely worth the cost. This also made Yu Haoran's complaints about the power of the Thaling concealment formation suddenly disappear. The second battle that ended was the battle between the giant dragon and the three ancestral sorcerers in the Sea of Consciousness. Although its huge body allowed it to have more powerful strength, it also made it difficult for it to avoid the joint attack of the three ancestral sorcerers. In the end, the three vital parts of the dragon's body were hit by the three ancestral sorcerers at the same time. The dragon's body instantly transformed into a large amount of blood essence and directly began to expand the space of the Sea of Consciousness. This caused the originally boundless Sea of Consciousness to become even more boundless. The last battle that ended was the battle between the mythical beast Tao Wu and the three ancestral sorcerers in the Dantian. Unlike the giant dragon in the Sea of Consciousness and the Golden Toad in the Heart, they were easily killed by the joint attack of the ancestral sorcerers. The mythical beast Tao Wu in the Dantian used the strong evil spirit that could affect one's mind. After nearly an hour of killing, it successfully killed an ancestral sorcerer. At the moment when the ancestral sorcerer was killed, countless memory fragments quickly merged into Yu Haoran's divine soul. After losing a powerful helper, the remaining two ancestral sorcerers soon fell into a disadvantageous position in the face of the increasingly powerful mythical beast Tao Wu. They could be killed at any time. In the Heart, the two ancestral sorcerers who had just killed the Golden Toad immediately rushed to the Dantian after sensing the death of their companion. However, just as they arrived at the Dantian, the mythical beast Tao will use the means of shadow transposition to directly kill the two ancestral sorcerers who had already been severely injured. The two ancestral sorcerers who had lost 3 companions roared angrily to the sky and rushed directly to the mythical beast Tao Wu. However, the Tao Wu who had killed 3 ancestral sorcerers in a row did not show any signs of exhaustion. Instead, its aura became stronger and stronger. In the face of the 2 ancestral sorcerers who were rushing toward it, it met them fearlessly. Shadow transposition. When the Tao Wu had killed the 2 ancestral sorcerers in an instant, it had used the means of shadow transposition to make Yu Haoran, who had just awakened from his epiphany, immerse himself in the comprehension once again. The comprehension this time was not about the understanding of martial arts techniques, nor was it about the improvement of cultivation. Instead, it was a feeling similar to the comprehension of the law of endless growth. Shadow transposition was a method that could surpass the limits of space and achieve a speed that was close to teleportation. It was also a powerful law that was second only to the law of space. As the comprehension deepened, Yu Haoran seemed to have vaguely grasped the tale of the law of speed. However, at this moment, the ferocious mythical beast Tao Wu once again used the means of shadow transposition to instantly kill one of the ancestral sorcerers. The ancestral sorcerer who had been killed turned into countless memory fragments and directly interrupted his comprehension. In this regard, Yuhauran was not too disappointed. This was because he had already successfully grasped the tale of the law of speed. Next, he could use martial arts techniques that could increase his speed. Perhaps through a deeper level of cultivation, he could continue to increase his comprehension of the law of speed. Just as the memory fragments of the fourth ancestral sorcerer that had been killed merged into the sea of consciousness, the three ancestral sorcerers who had just killed the giant dragon in the sea of consciousness immediately roared like thunder and rushed toward the Dantian to help their last remaining companion in the Dantian. Even in the face of the joint attack of the four ancestral sorcerers, the mythical beast Tao Wu, whose strength had been severely damaged, did not reveal a trace of calamity intent. Instead, it directly used the means of self-explosion with its evil aura and chose to perish together with the four ancestral sorcerers. Chapter 9:31. As the divine beast Tao Wu self-detonated with its evil spirit, the blood sea that had lost the blood essence of the divine beast gradually dried up, revealing Yuhauran, who was sitting cross-legged in the center of the blood sea. With a wave of its hand, the tower spirit put away the three blood-red flag arrays and slowly walked over to Yuhauran. There was shame on its face, and there was also a trace of regret in its eyes. After all, in order to obtain the 12 divine beings' killing formation that was passed down from the wizard ancestor, he had deliberately concealed the inhuman pain caused by the intense impact on the body when the divine beast and the wizard ancestor fought. If he counted the memory fragments of the four wizard ancestors that had been integrated into his divine soul in the green flame secret realm, there were a total of 12 wizard ancestors' memories. It was not something that could be finished in a short time. Therefore, Yuhauran listened to Thaling's instructions and specifically searched for the records of the 12 divine beings' killing formation in the wizard ancestors' memories. After more than an hour of searching, he finally found the 12 divine beings' killing formation in the memories of the 12 wizard ancestors and completely integrated them together. Then he slowly opened his eyes. Yuhauran, I'm sorry. Thaling quickly apologized when he saw Yuhauran open his eyes. Thaling, I hope that if you encounter such a situation in the future, you can inform me in advance so that I can be mentally prepared. The infinite expansion of his Dantian and sea of consciousness, the strengthening of his internal organs by more than 10 times, the deep understanding of the wizard ancestors' martial skills, and the successful comprehension of the law of speed made Yuhauran's resentment toward Thaling disappear. Therefore, in the face of Thaling's apology, he did not remind him too angrily. Don't worry, I'll be careful in the future. Seeing that Yuhauran's reaction was not as angry as he had imagined, Thaling secretly heaved a sigh of relief and then looked at him expectantly. Here you are. He used his divine thought to condense the 12 divine beings' killing formation that he had just found into a stream of energy and then directly integrated it into Thaling's divine soul. Yuhauran, Victor's time acceleration space is ready. After receiving the Thaling from Yuhauran for the 12 divine formations, he rushed directly to the top floor of Victor and reminded Yuhauran, if you want to go into seclusion for a while, you can go in directly. Yuhauran didn't respond to Thaling's reminder. This was because when he transferred the 12 divine beings' ominous formation to Thaling, he discovered that his cultivation had unknowingly broken through to the martial royal realm. Furthermore, it had risen to the early stage of the second-grade martial royal realm. What shocked him even more was that in addition to the breakthrough in his cultivation, his physical body had also advanced by 2 small realms, reaching the peak of 4th-grade martial emperor. He didn't deliberately circulate the Supreme Mystery Heart Sutra's cultivation method, nor did he mobilize the circulation of the Stardow arts. So why did his cultivation and the grade of his fleshly body break through one after another? When he saw that there were less than 10 of the dozens of 4th grade, 1st grade spirit stones that he had placed in front of him before, he had an idea. Without immediately checking his own situation, Yuhauran put away the remaining 4th grade, first Great Spirit stones, then got up and entered Victor's time acceleration space. As he carefully examined the reason for the breakthrough in his cultivation and the grade of his fleshly body, he read the huge amount of memories left by the 12 ancestral sorcerers. Cultivation knew no time. Yu Haoran, who was immersed in cultivation, didn't feel the passage of time at all. It wasn't until Thaling entered the time acceleration space and used his divine thoughts to wake him up that Yu Haoran woke up from his cultivation. Thaling, how much time has passed? Feeling that his limbs were a little sore and numb, Yu Haoran knew that it was because he had been sitting cross-legged for too long. Even with his peak 4th grade martial royal realm ancestral sorcerer's body, he still felt sore and numb, which meant that he had been cultivating in seclusion for a very long time. Therefore, he couldn't help but ask. 4 months and 9 days, Thaling replied. Regarding this, Yu Haoran, who had been mentally prepared, wasn't too shocked. Then he thought of the second step of Thaling's plan to encircle and annihilate the strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains. So he quickly asked, Thaling, how's the preparation going? The refining of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation requires too many top-notch materials. I can barely refine a simplified version now, and it's a one-time formation of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation, Thaling said somewhat gloomily. As a famous formation in ancient times, Thaling knew that refining the 12 divine beings' ominous formation required a lot of precious materials. However, when he really understood the 12 divine beings' ominous formation, he realized that his collection of materials for more than a year was only enough to refine the surface of the formation. How could he not feel gloomy? Will it affect the plan to encircle and annihilate the strange beasts? It's just a simplified version of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation. Thaling's reply made Yu Haoran unable to help but ask worriedly. Yu Haoran, the complete 12 divine beings' ominous formation is a heaven-defying formation that can trap and kill the 9 great mythical beast kings in ancient times. Hearing Yu Haoran's worry, Thaling immediately explained with a proud expression. Just 11 quasi-venerable strange beasts. Even if it's a simplified version of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation, it will definitely be able to trap them easily. That's good. Knowing that Thaling wasn't someone who spoke without thinking, Yu Haoran nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. Yu Haoran, how's your preparation going? In order to annihilate the quasi-venerable strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains, the 12 divine beings' ominous formation that he had refined could only play a defensive and auxiliary role. The one who would truly play a decisive role was still Yu Haoran. Therefore, Thaling needed to know how his preparation was and whether he had the confidence to annihilate the quasi-venerable strange beasts. After all, before annihilating the 11 quasi-venerable strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains, Yu Haoran had to swear on the heavenly Tao rules to obtain the support of a huge amount of luck and reward from the heavenly Tao rules. If he didn't have the confidence to annihilate the strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains, then they would have to reconsider whether to continue with the plan of annihilating the strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains. With the ancestral witch's fist technique, I can annihilate the quasi-venerable strange beasts with the laws of perfection. In response to Thaling's question, Yu Haoran nodded and said, with the ancestral witch's body, I can annihilate the first tribulation quasi-venerable strange beasts with the staff facing the sky and overturning the seas and rivers. At this point, Yu Haoran couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. However, I don't have any means to deal with the second tribulation quasi-venerable strange beasts. In order to obtain the support of the luck of the strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains and obtain the reward from the heavenly Tao rules, he had to swear on the heavenly Tao rules to annihilate the 11 quasi-venerable strange beasts in the Hungduan Mountains alone. And Thaling's possession technique was to use his soul to control his physical body. It could be said that he was directly interfering. This was against the oath of the heavenly Tao rules. In a short 4 months of closed-door cultivation, Yu Haoran was actually able to kill the first tribulation quasi-venerable strange beasts with the ancestral witch's body. Thaling was extremely shocked by Yu Haoran's achievement. Chapter 9:32. You Howren, I need to perform the possession technique now. I need to use my divine soul to check the true strength of your physical body. Let's see how many times the ancestral witch's body can withstand when it is fully activated. After careful consideration, Thaling finally selected 3 methods that could increase you Howren's strength in a short period of time. However, the prerequisite was to delve into the true condition of his physical body before deciding which method to use. Okay, at the same time as Thaling's suggestion, Howren directly activated the ancestral witch's body and accepted Thaling's inspection with the ancestral witch's body at its peak. Looking at the ancestral witch's body that was more than 800 meters tall, Thaling's face revealed a look of anticipation. Without the slightest delay, he directly used his divine will to perform the possession technique. When the divine soul entered the body and began to control Howren's physical body, he felt as if he could tear the sky with his hands and crush the earth with his feet. He could not help but sigh at the terror of the ancestral witch's body as the strongest physical body in the world. Then, he began to use his divine thought to check the physical body that he controlled. The more he checked, the more shocked he was. The more he understood, the more joy he felt. When he saw Howren's meridians, blood vessels, internal organs, and heart that had been strengthened more than 10 times, the idea of being able to increase his strength by 10 times in a short period of time quickly came to Thaling's mind. When he saw the boundless sea of consciousness and Danteon that had been expanded by 10 times, the strong shock in his heart made him decide to give up the 3 plans that he had made in advance and directly choose the method that had just emerged in his mind. Howren, you will definitely win this time to kill the quasi-venerable realm exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range. Thaling could not suppress the joy in his heart as his divine soul withdrew from Howren's physical body and dispersed the possession technique. Feeling the joy in Thaling's tone, Howren immediately asked about the method to kill the quasi-venerable realm exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range alone. Looking at Howren, who had returned to his mortal body, Thaling said word by word, "Demon God, enter the body. Demon God, enter the body." While repeating Thaling's words to himself, Howren triggered the ancestral witch's memory in his mind. Then, he looked at Thaling in shock and asked in a trembling voice, "Pagoda Spirit, you want to use the 12 capital Heaven Divine Fiend formation to condense the ancient Fiend Celestial, and then use the Fiend Celestial to enter my body to instantly increase my strength by dozens of times." Seeing that you had understood the method and power of Demon God, enter the body's body, Thaling explained not to explain. Because you are one with your second doppelganger. If your second doppelganger controls the 12 capital Heaven Divine Wraith formation, it is equivalent to you controlling the formation yourself. It does not violate the oath of the heavenly Tao. Bodies realm demons enter the bodies, enter the body, as the body to the body. After closing his eyes and carefully reading the 12 ancestral witches' detailed introduction and feelings about Demon God enter the body, he finally nodded and agreed to Thaling using Demon God enter the body. Since that's the case, you should leave Victor now and swear by the heaven's way to kill the quasi-venerable realm exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range alone. Seeing that Howren agreed to use Demon God enter the body to deal with the quasi-second tribulation venerable gray fox, Thaling secretly heaved a sigh of relief and immediately seized the time to carry out the plan to kill the exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range. After all, Thaling knew that Emperor Qin had a good relationship with Howren. He was worried that Emperor Qin would not want to disappoint Howren and send experts to help. Then, the method that he carefully planned for Howren to increase his reputation and luck would be ineffective. Okay. Nodding, Howren's consciousness touched the mark in his sea of consciousness and left Victor, appearing on the peak. Looking into the depths of the Hungduan mountain range, Howren vaguely felt an exuberant aura of vitality. He knew that this was not his illusion, but a sign that the exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range was about to mutate after its strength reached a certain limit. If this situation was allowed to develop, the entire southern region would probably be occupied by the exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range. Taking a deep breath, Yu Haoran withdrew his gaze and bit his finger. As he tore the blood that he forced out into the air, he swore in a loud and clear voice. The ancestors took pity on us and set an agreement of peaceful coexistence with compassion. However, the quasi-venerable realm exotic beast in the Hungduan mountain range ignored the ancestors' agreement and took advantage of the opening of the Green Flame secret realm to slaughter the human elite warriors in the secret realm. Although my cultivation is not high, I am willing to use my physical body to uphold the principle of peaceful coexistence set by the ancestors. I, Yu Haoran, swear by the rules of Heaven Dao that I am willing to kill all the quasi-venerable realm exotic beasts in the Hungduan mountain range alone to avenge the human warriors who died. I will not rest until I am dead. If I, Yu Haoran, feel fear in my heart, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, flee before the battle, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, surrender, my divine soul will be destroyed. After Yu Haoran swore with his own blood and his own methods, a single emotionless eye slowly appeared in the calm sky above the Hungduan mountain range. The single eye looked at Yu Haoran, who was standing alone on the peak with a determined expression, and slowly closed it. When it opened again, a majestic voice sounded in Yu Haoran's ears. Approved. Along with the word approved, the blood floating in the air instantly appeared in front of the single eye. Then, a mysterious yellow energy shot out from the single eye and directly merged with the blood. After that, the blood merged with the mysterious yellow energy condensed into 12 seals, which respectively entered the consciousness of Yu Haoran and the 11 quasi-venerable realm exotic beasts in the depths of the mountain range. At the same time, the entire sky above the Tianxian continent began to reverberate with the voice of Yu Haoran's oath. Xianyang City, East City Gate. Looking at the thick city walls that were dozens of meters tall, Elder Zhang's eyes were filled with deep disappointment. Your Majesty, although your talent is very high and your methods are very powerful, your breadth of mind and vision is lacking compared to the previous emperor. After shaking his head and muttering to himself, Elder Zhang couldn't help but sigh deeply. Then, just as he was about to soar into the sky and return to the Zhang clan, he suddenly heard the familiar voice of an oath. If I, Yu Haoran, feel fear in my heart, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, flee in the face of battle, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoran, surrender, my divine soul will be destroyed. This is the voice of the prince consort. The familiar voice allowed Elder Zhang to quickly realize that the person who had just made the oath was Yu Haoran, who had been separated from him for 4 days. However, when he heard the contents of the oath, his expression couldn't help but change. Then, Elder Zhang glared furiously at Xianyang City. He directly soared into the sky and rushed towards the Hungduan mountain range at the fastest speed possible. In the palace study, Chapter 9:33. Xianyang City, in the study of the Imperial Palace. Even if Elder Zhang and Yu Haoran did not take the initiative to mention the changes that happened in the Hungduan Mountains, as well as the various consequences that might be caused by the changes, Emperor Qin was not unaware of them. However, in order to unify the entire southern region in the shortest time possible, and also to lay a solid foundation for future cross-region expeditions, nearly 80% of the Qin Kingdom's army had been mobilized from all 4 directions. At this moment, even if he wanted to send troops to exterminate the exotic beasts in the Hungduan Mountains, he was powerless. Your Majesty, Elder Zhang has just left Xianyang City. Steward Jiang, who appeared in a flash, replied, "All right, you can leave first." Nodding, Emperor Qin waved his hand to signal Steward Jiang to leave first. However, at this moment, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the study. If I, Yu Haoran, feel fear in my heart, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, you Howren, flee before the battle, my divine soul will be destroyed. If I, you Howren, surrender, my divine soul will be destroyed. Hearing that you Howren swore by the heavenly way rules to exterminate the quasi-venerable exotic beasts in the Hungduan Mountains alone, Emperor Qin stood up abruptly with an extremely shocked expression on his face. Steward Jiang, who had just left the study, immediately entered the study without any announcement and looked at Emperor Qin with a shocked expression. Howren, it seems that I was wrong. Taking a deep breath, Emperor Qin's eyes gradually revealed a trace of regret as he muttered to himself. Then he directly rose into the air and then hovered above Xianyang City. Sword come, Emperor Qin shouted sternly toward the backyard of the imperial palace. 3 seconds later, a purple sword flew out from the harem. When it reached the Qin emperor's hand, a voice filled with helplessness and resentment rang out. Yishun, apologize to the prince consort on my behalf. Your majesty's decree is honored. Emperor Qin cupped his hands, holding the emperor's sword in his hand, and went straight to the Hungduan Mountains. Not long after the Qin emperor left Xianyang City, a young girl wearing a purple gown with a veil on her face rushed out of the imperial harem. Howren, you and I are one. Even if we die, we will die together. Then, the girl in purple directly overdrew her soul power in Yuan Qi and rushed to the Hungduan Mountains at lightning speed. After the Hungduan Mountains, more than 20 experts with powerful qi flew out of the city. They either had a look of shock or a sneer on their lips. They went straight to the Hungduan Mountains. 100 feet gate, clear cloud peak. After attending Yu Haoren and Qin Lingfei's engagement ceremony, Feng Qingyun returned to the Qingyun Peak and often stayed in the Hidden Moon Pavilion, drinking tea in the pavilion or meditating in the cultivation room. As for the disciples of the Qingyun faction, other than Wu Jingjun and Lin Xian, who had followed Qin Tianzi into the army to train, the rest of the disciples, including Chu Zhongyu, were all in low spirits. In Xianyang City, the bustling and new environment made them not realize the importance of 9th junior brother Yu Haoren. But when they returned to the Qingyun Peak and returned to their peaceful lives, they realized that without 9th junior brother, Qingyun Peak seemed to have lost its backbone. Even their cultivation was not as energetic as before. On this day, Feng Qingyun was sitting in the pavilion of the Hidden Moon Pavilion, drinking tea. He didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a little upset. He didn't even have the mood to drink the spirit tea that he had carefully brewed. He took a deep breath and waved his hand to put away the tea set on the stone table. Feng Qingyun planned to use the special power of law to see what was causing him to be upset. Suddenly, the familiar voice of an oath sounded on the Qingyun Peak. If I, Yu Haoren, feel fear in my heart, then my soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoren, run away before the battle, then my soul will be destroyed. If I, Yu Haoren, surrender, then my soul will be destroyed. Haoren, hearing the content of the oath and the determination of the oath, Feng Qingyun's expression suddenly changed and he shouted. Then, he directly flew into the sky and headed straight for the Hungduan mountain range. Huang Zonghua, who had also heard Yu Haoren's oath, looked at Chu Zhongyu with anticipation. Eldest senior brother, why don't we go too? Okay. Seeing the anticipation in the eyes of his juniors, Chu Zhongyu finally gritted his teeth and nodded in agreement. Then, he personally took the Gongsun siblings, who were still unable to fly by themselves, and headed straight for the Hungduan mountain range. At the achievement hall, Hall Master, please let me help you, Xixiao. Kong Yunga, who was firmly suppressed by the achievement hall master, begged bitterly. Jingya, the Hungduan mountain range is filled with danger. Even if I were a martial emperor, I wouldn't dare to enter, let alone you who is only a martial ancestor. The achievement hall master explained as he shook his head and refused. For your safety and to not disturb the life and death agreement between martial nephew Yu and the quasi-martial emperor, you should obediently stay in the achievement hall. Hall master, Kong Yunga, who was unwilling to give up, begged. Men, take Jingya away and watch over her strictly. She must not be allowed to leave the achievement hall without permission. Seeing that Kong Yung-ah was still unwilling to give up and wanted to help Yu Haoran, the achievement hall master's face darkened, and he immediately ordered the two newly promoted elders. Yes, the two elders responded. Then, regardless of whether Kong Yung-ah agreed or not, they used their martial king strength to suppress the struggling Kong Yung-ah. Then, they locked her in a specially made cultivation room and watched over her strictly. Xiao Feng, what do you think I should do? Looking at the sealed door, Kong Yung-ah was so anxious that she almost cried. Wind-tailed fox, who inherited the bloodline of the 9 great divine beast kings, the 9-tailed celestial fox, rolled its lively eyes a few times. Then, it hissed a few times at Kong Yung-ah. Then, it flew away from Kong Yung-ah's shoulder and scratched the wall of the cultivation room with its claws. Immediately, a gap big enough for a person to pass through appeared on the incomparably sturdy wall. Xiao Feng, when did you become so powerful? Kong Yung-ah could not help but ask in astonishment when she saw the gap in the wall, because the wall in front of her was made of deep-sea black iron. Even a martial king expert would not be able to easily break it. But what about Xiao Feng? With just a light scratch, it had directly broken the wall made of deep-sea black iron without making a single sound. This meant that its strength was at least at the 5th stage Emperor realm. How could Kong Yung-ah, who had spent day and night with it, not be shocked? Xiao Feng did not explain much about this. It only pointed at the gap in the wall with its claws, reminding Kong Yung-ah to leave quickly. Compared to understanding the reason for Xiao Feng's increase in strength, it was more important to go to the Hengduan mountain range to help Yu Shixiao. Therefore, Kong Yung-ah did not ask about the reason for Xiao Feng's increase in strength. Through the gap in the wall, she quietly left the Hall of Achievements. Then, with the help of Wind-tailed Fox's extreme speed, she directly left the 100-Chi Gate. After the two elders brought Kong Yung-ah away, the Hall Master of the Hall of Achievements raised his head and looked towards the north. His eyes revealed a trace of joy that could not be suppressed. Chapter 934. 100-Chi Gate. Accompanied by a powerful energy fluctuation, a blood-red light shot up into the sky and turned into a young girl with a peerless appearance. From today onwards, I, Lin Mingyao, am no longer a master and disciple of the 100-Chi Gate. I am no longer a disciple of Dawnfall Peak. You, faced with Lin Mingyao's strong declaration, angry voices came from Dawnfall Peak, but no one dared to refute her. Lin Mingyao took one last look at the 100-Chi Gate, where she had lived for more than a year, and her eyes finally stopped at Qingfeng Peak. Yu Shixiao, I have successfully activated the bloodline inheritance of my family. Although I'm only a 4th-grade martial arts grandmaster, I could defeat a martial king expert. Perhaps I can help you with the blood oath between you and Hengduan Mountain. Looking away from Qingyan Peak, Lin Mingyao instantly turned into a blood-red phoenix and rushed directly to Hengduan Mountain. In order to go to the Hengduan Mountain to help Yu Haoran, Zhou Mingyao didn't hesitate to leave the Baiqi school and cut off all ties with the Baiqi school. On a small mountain about 100 miles away from the Sunset Peak, Jian Wuhan, who was holding a sword, gradually became determined. No matter what the final result is, at least I, the sword without trace, have truly loved. Then this life is worth it. Then, the celestial device in the sword without trace's hand suddenly turned into a white silver dragon. The white silver dragon was about 100 meters long. Not only was its shape very beautiful, but it also exuded a powerful aura that suppressed all the people in the 100-Chi Gate. They had no choice but to lower their heads. Landing on the back of the white silver dragon, the sword without trace looked at the 100-Chi Gate, where he had lived for 4 years, and 2 drops of tears fell from his eyes. Goodbye, 100-Chi Gate. Lanling City, in the city governor's mansion. Since returning to the city lord's mansion, in order to be able to refine the blazing heavenly fire in her body as soon as possible, under Shi Fangling's arrangement, Hiryu directly entered a state of seclusion. However, after hearing Yu Haoran's oath, she immediately went to find Sure Fangling. She had no time to continue refining the strange flame in her body that was on the verge of going out of control. Knowing that due to his identity, the Prince of Lanling could not leave Lanling City easily, nor could he mobilize the experts in the City Lord Mansion, Sure Fangling brought He Ruyu to the Hungduan mountain range. The oath that was spread across the entire profound sky continent, with the help of the rules of the Heavenly Way, had attracted some people who were concerned about Yu Haoran to head to the Hungduan mountain range. However, even more people who heard the news revealed disdain and ridicule on their faces, as well as deep jealousy. If it had been a 3-calamity or 2-calamity quasi-martial venerable who had single-handedly exterminated the Hungduan mountain range's quasi-martial venerable, they might have been more optimistic about the final outcome. However, what about Yu Haoran? A martial king or martial emperor would not even have the chance to enter the depths of the Hungduan mountain range before being eaten by the ordinary quasi-martial beasts. What right did he have to gain the recognition of the rules of the Heavenly Way? Furthermore, it had spread his name across the world. However, Yu Haoran's magnificent feat of exterminating the quasi-martial venerable beasts in the Hungduan mountain range only caused a huge commotion in the southern region. As for the countless experts in the east, west, north, and central region, they only paid a little attention to it before going on with their own matters. After the rules of the Heavenly Way had been imprinted into his spirit with the blood seal formed by the oath and the blood seal, Yu Haoran took a deep breath before soaring into the sky and heading straight for the Hungduan mountain range. However, just as he arrived in the sky above the Hungduan mountain range, 3 level 6 first-grade blood-scarred cranes rushed directly in front of him and detonated their spirit, demonic powers, and physical bodies in a suicidal manner. Although the power of their self-detonation could not harm him for the time being, Yu Haoran knew that the old gray fox in the Hungduan mountain range was planning to use the countless quasi-martial beasts in the mountain range to exhaust his strength. "Brother Ran, let's begin." Yu Haoran instructed the second doppelganger that had merged into his body. Subsequently, the second doppelganger's consciousness controlled the main body and directly threw out 12 small black flags. Using the locations marked by Thaling's divine sense in advance, the second doppelganger controlled the 12 small black flags and inserted them into different positions in the Hungduan mountain range. Immediately after, the second doppelganger's 10 fingers quickly formed a seal. As the seals formed, continuously merged into the formation flags, countless black gas gradually emerged from the entire Hungduan mountain range. This caused the quasi-martial beasts who intended to harm Yu Haoran by self-detonating to lose their bearings. Even if they used their divine sense, they could not find Yu Haoran's exact location. As the black gas emerged, the easternmost formation flag suddenly left the ground and began to spin rapidly. As the formation flag spun faster and faster, a creature that looked very similar to the ancestral sorcerer but had an extra pair of wings on its back gradually replaced the formation flag. When the winged creature had completely replaced the formation flag, it suddenly roared toward the sky. Accompanied by the deafening roar, its body that was originally only 20 centimeters tall rapidly grew into a giant that was 10,000 meters tall. What a pity! In order to avoid being discovered by the Heavenly Way, Thaling, who had hidden in the victor in advance, sighed softly and complained to Yu Haoran after seeing that the winged demon god only reached a height of 10,000 meters. If it was the complete version of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation, the demon god's body that was condensed would be more than 1,000,000 meters tall, and its strength would be even stronger than the 12 ancestral sorcerers. That's enough. Looking at the giant demon god that was constantly transforming into different shapes and appearances and reaching a height of more than 10,000 meters, Yu Haoran was shocked. He was also very satisfied that Thaling was able to refine the simplified version of the 12 divine beings' ominous formation in such a short time. When the 12 formation flags had all transformed into demon gods that were 10,000 meters tall, the 12 demon gods roared at the Hungduan mountains at the same time. Accompanied by the roar, all the exotic beasts in the Hungduan Mountains that were below the fourth level of the Saint Realm either knelt on both knees or crawled on the ground on all fours. All of them submitted to the roar of the demon god. Yu Haoran, with the help of the blood essence of the ancient mythical beast that has been integrated into the demon god's body, the power of the demon god's roar can only suppress these exotic beasts for half an hour at most. Just as countless exotic beasts in the Hungduan Mountains submitted to the demon god's roar, Faling and the victor reminded him. Therefore, you must kill all the quasi-venerable exotic beasts within half an hour. Otherwise, you can only detonate the demon god in advance and completely destroy the entire Hungduan Mountains. Got it. After responding, Yu Haoran, who had regained control of his physical body, directly activated the body of the ancestral sorcerer. Then, he used the ancestral sorcerer's secret technique to overdraft the blood essence of the ancestral sorcerer to temporarily raise the grade of his physical body to the martial sage realm. This was also the reason why he was confident that he could defeat the first tribulation quasi-venerable exotic beasts with his fist and staff techniques. Chapter 935. Don't wait, there are only 4 chapters today. In the Hungduan Mountain Range. Roar. Just as Yu Haoran stepped into the depths of the Hungduan Mountain Range, a deafening roar came from the depths of the mountain range. Accompanied by a deafening roar, a brown bear with a height of 80 meters charged over quickly. To an ordinary human martial sage, 80-meter-tall brown bear was a giant that they had to look up to. However, to Yu Haoran, who was more than 1,000 meters tall, it was like a little brown mouse. Shatter the sky. Looking at the brown bear rushing over quickly, Yu Haoran stopped in his tracks and waved his fist. He used the ancestral sorcerer fist technique that he had comprehended during the battle between the ancestral sorcerer and the giant dragon and blasted it directly at the brown bear. Damn it! Although the larger the body, the stronger the power in the body. However, considering that Yu Haoran was only a martial king, the brown bear that rushed out first did not take the 1,000-meter-tall Yu Haoran seriously at all. However, when Yu Haoran's giant fist contained a terrifying power that exceeded the complete law, a trace of fear rose in its heart. At this moment, it wanted to turn around and escape into the depths of the mountain range, then join forces with its companions to attack. However, the fist technique that came at it quickly crossed the limits of time and space and appeared directly in front of the brown bear. Originally, with the strength of the complete law, the brown bear could still exchange a few blows with Yu Haoran. However, the thought of retreating made it difficult for it to exert its full strength, and it was directly smashed into meat paste by the giant fist. After taking the storage ring, Yu Haoran continued to rush into the depths of the mountain range. Yu Haoran, collect the brown bear's body directly. Looking at the brown bear that had been smashed into meat paste, Faling hurriedly ordered with a pained heart. This was because the large number of materials needed to refine the 12 divine beings' ominous formation contained the blood essence of various divine beasts, which was indispensable. Moreover, the more blood essence there was, the stronger the demon god formed by the formation would be. Without looking back, he used his divine thought to sweep up the brown bear's body that had been smashed into meat paste and sent it directly into the victor. Moo! Meow! Just as Yu Haoran put away the brown bear's corpse and was about to continue charging forward, 2 furious roars rang out from the depths of the mountain range, causing him to immediately stop. He then looked at the 2 exotic beasts charging out from the depths of the mountain range with a grave expression. It was a green rhinoceros that was more than 50 meters tall and more than 110 meters long. Its cultivation had reached perfection in the laws of nature. It was a tabby cat that was more than 10 meters tall, but its body and tail were more than 50 meters long. Its cultivation had also reached perfection in the laws of nature. Human, since you dare to provoke the king of the Hungduan Mountains, you should be prepared to die. The green rhinoceros scolded fiercely when it was still 1,000 meters away from Yu Haoran. In the face of the green rhinoceros's angry rebuke, the 1,000-meter-tall Yu Haoran also rebuked in a booming voice. Livestock, you dared to encircle and annihilate the elites of our human martial practitioners. You should also be prepared to have your souls destroyed. Damn it. In the face of you Howren's reprimand, the green rhinoceros secretly cursed and then signaled to the spotted cat. Do it. Then, the horn on the green rhinoceros's head slowly condensed into a green light. Meanwhile, the spotted cat disappeared on the spot. You Howren, be careful. Just as the green rhinoceros's horn condensed into a green light, the Thaling and the victor hurriedly reminded him. That green light contains a strong aura of death. You Howren, who had originally planned to use the ancestral wizard fist technique to kill the green rhinoceros, immediately dispersed the power of the fist technique when he heard that the green light contained a strong aura of death. Then, he directly increased the defense of his physical strength, intending to use the aura of death contained in the green light to try and comprehend the law of death. Crack! Just as Howren increased the defense of his physical body, intending to resist the attack of the green light, a cold light suddenly flashed in his heart. However, when the gloomy cold light passed through his body, there was a sound of hard objects colliding. Other than the blue long robe that was refined by the Thaling that could change at the same time as his physical body was cut, there was no trace of injury in his heart. Coldly looking at the spotted cat that retreated and hid in the void again, Howren ignored it for the time being and continued to stare at the green light that had left the horn and was rapidly approaching him. Boom! Just as the green light blasted into his body, there was a roaring collision sound. Accompanied by the strong impact, Howren could not control his body and directly took 3 steps back, and a trace of blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. Howren, you're crazy. Seeing that Howren gave up attacking and took the initiative to resist the green light with his own defense, the Thaling, who did not know what he was going to do, anxiously reprimanded him. It's worth it. Reaching out to wipe the trace of blood remaining at the corner of his mouth, Howren's face revealed a look of surprise. Howren, what were you doing just now? Although he was slightly injured, there was a surprised smile on his face. Howren's strange reaction made the Thaling even more confused and asked, Thaling, I'll tell you in detail after I kill the green rhinoceros. Looking at the green rhinoceros that was condensing the green light again, Howren, who did not have time to explain to Thaling, immediately performed the ancestral wizard fist technique. Sky shatter. Just as the green light condensed by the green rhinoceros was about to shoot out, the fist technique that contained the concept and epiphany transcended the restrictions of time and space and directly appeared in front of the green rhinoceros. While destroying the green light, it also blasted the green rhinoceros into a meat paste. After taking the opportunity to put away the green rhinoceros storage ring and body, Howren looked for the spotted cat that was hiding in the void while explaining to Thaling why he took the initiative to take the attack of the green light just now. What? Hearing Howren's explanation, Thaling, who was extremely shocked, almost rushed out of the victor. Then, after taking 3 deep breaths and barely suppressing his shock, Thaling asked excitedly, Howren, you said just now that you used the death aura contained in the green light to successfully comprehend the law of death. That's right. Howren nodded in confirmation and explained while using the divine telekinesis search secret technique that Thaling had taught him and gradually narrowed the space to search. Although I've only comprehended the surface of the law of death, I believe that with my own comprehension, I'll definitely be able to successfully comprehend the law of death within a month. After receiving Howren's confirmation, Thaling clenched his fists and promised in an even more excited tone. Howren, if you can successfully comprehend the law of death within a month, then I'll use a secret technique to give you a 70% chance of fusing the dual laws of life and death and use it to create your own law martial technique. Thaling, thank you. Thaling's promise also made Howren feel endless joy in his heart. However, under the influence of the memories of the 12 ancestral wizards, his gradually calming personality instantly suppressed his feelings of joy and thanked Thaling with a calm expression. Chapter 9:36. In the Hungwan mountain range. You're courting death. When Yu Haoran's divine sense was compressed to a radius of 100 meters, he suddenly realized that the tabby cat, who was hiding in the void with the help of the law of nihility, was only 10 meters away from his forehead. He couldn't help but laugh coldly. "Pah!" Then, as he retreated, he quickly slapped his thick palms together and directly slapped the tabby cat, who was still hidden in the void and had not realized that it had been exposed, into a meat patty. When he put away the storage ring, he also directly threw the tabby cat into the victor. Then, when Yu Haoran was about to continue moving deeper into the mountain range, he suddenly realized that the environment in front of him had changed. In the majestic palace, more than 20 peerless beauties in revealing clothes were dancing. After seeing Yu Haoran enter the palace, these peerless beauties immediately began to seduce him. In response, Yu Haoran calmly ignored the temptations of the beauties and directly looked at the black phoenix butterfly carved on the pillar of the palace. What a pity! Just as Yu Haoran noticed the black phoenix butterfly on the pillar of the palace, a thawing sigh came from the victor. As a beautiful phoenix butterfly that contains the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the nine-color heart butterfly, it has actually fallen to the point of comprehending the law of seduction and has no hope of advancing to the martial venerable realm in its lifetime. What a pity! The environment determines one's fate. Looking at the black phoenix butterfly that was gradually coming to life on the pillar, Yu Haoran also couldn't help but sigh. Living with a group of cunning people all year round, even if it wants to restore the glory of its ancestors, I'm afraid those animals won't let it do as it wishes. Following Yu Haoran's sigh, the black phoenix butterfly that had completely left the pillar turned into a beauty in an instant. It had the advantages of all women in this world, as if it was a fairy that lived above the clouds. It could be said that the beauty that the black phoenix butterfly transformed into was a peerless beauty that he had never seen in his previous life. It was also a peerless beauty that made people unable to control their inner impulses, wanting to possess her as their own. Unfortunately, his powerful state of mind and the influence of the memories left behind by the 12 ancestral sorcerers had on him caused the desire that had just emerged in his heart to be completely suppressed in an instant. This also caused the peerless beauty that the black phoenix butterfly had transformed into to look like a pink skeleton in his eyes. Alas! Yu Haoran sighed softly and threw out a heavy punch towards the peerless beauty in front of him. Boom! Accompanied by an intense, rumbling sound, the peerless beauty in front of him turned back into a black butterfly. Moreover, the black butterfly's body began to grow continuously. In the end, it became a giant black butterfly with a wingspan of more than 30 meters. Why? The black swallow-tailed butterfly, which had fallen heavily to the ground, asked with its charming eyes filled with endless doubts. You have too little life experience. You have never seen a real, peerless beauty in this world. In the face of the black swallow-tailed butterfly's questioning, Yu Haoran suddenly turned around and pointed to the purple-clothed girl with a white veil on her face. She clenched her fists tightly and had tears in the corners of her eyes. The beauty that you transformed into using the law of charm just now is far inferior to that purple-clothed girl, who is also my fiancée, Qin Lingfei. Yu Haoran. The black swallowtail butterfly's charming black eyes directly saw Qin Lingfei's appearance through the white veil. It immediately retorted in an unconvinced manner. You're lying. The beauty that I transformed into just now is the peerless beauty that once brought chaos to the whole world in the Middle Ages. She's much better than that inexperienced woman of yours. Yu Haoran's praise just now made Qin Lingfei feel a tinge of sweetness. However, the black swallowtail butterfly's sarcasm immediately made her burn with anger. If the entire Hingwan mountain range was not restricted by the law of heaven, and no one could enter the mountain range before the blood oath was completed, she would have already rushed in front of the black swallowtail butterfly and interrogated it about where she was inferior. as if it had felt Qin Ling Fei's unwillingness to accept it, and also wanted to prove that the beauty that it had painstakingly transformed with the law of charm was not so unbearable. The black swallowtail butterfly used the last moments of its life to recreate the woman that once caused chaos in the world in the Middle Ages. Sizzle. Just as the peerless beauty was recreated by the black swallowtail butterfly, countless gasps could be heard from outside the Hengduan mountain range. In the face of the perfect, peerless beauty, all the men present blushed, and their breathing became heavier. All the women present were filled with envy and jealousy. Even Emperor Qin, who had crossed 3 tribulations of fate and was holding an Emperor Celestial artifact, had the urge to possess the peerless beauty that the black swallowtail butterfly had transformed into. The shocked reaction of the people outside the Hengduan mountain range made the black swallowtail butterfly, whose vitality was gradually dying, look at Yu Haoran with an extremely proud expression on its face. As the saying goes, carrots and vegetables, each has his own preferences. In the face of the black swallowtail butterfly's counterattack before its death, Yu Haoran did not show any mercy at all. Perhaps this woman is a peerless beauty in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of Yu Haoran, she is just a pink skeleton. She will not arouse my interest at all. Yu Haoran's counterattack finally made the black swallowtail butterfly, who had reached the end of its life, die in peace with its eyes wide open and lying straight on the ground motionlessly. Qin Ling Fei, who was also standing outside the Hengduan mountain range, was very moved. Haoran, I was wrong. Under Thowling surging, Yu Haoran directly put the black swallowtail butterfly's intact body into the victor. However, at this moment, Emperor Qin's apologetic voice rang in his ears. Your Majesty, we are in different positions and have different considerations. Therefore, you are not wrong. Without looking back, Yu Haoran continued to walk towards the depths of the mountain range while calmly replying to Emperor Qin's apology. No, Haoran, I was wrong. In the face of Yu Haoran's calm reply, Emperor Qin shook his head and said solemnly, I only wanted to unify the entire southern region as soon as possible and then use the fate chi of this region to help me enter the martial venerable realm. But I forgot that no egg can remain intact when the nest is overturned. If the strange beasts in the Hengduan mountain range did not receive any punishment after breaking the principles set by our ancestors, not only would they become more arrogant, but they would also divide a lot of the fate chi of the entire southern region. It might affect my plan to break through to the martial venerable realm. Emperor Qin's sincere apology made Yu Haoran stop and turn around to look at him. In the end, he shook his head and sighed. Your Majesty, everything has its own cause and effect. You can only swallow the bitter fruit that you have sown. After that, he ignored Emperor Qin, who had changed his expression, and continued to walk towards the depths of the mountain range. Yu Haoran, what do you mean by those words just now? What did Emperor Qin mean? Thowling, who was completely confused by the conversation between Yu Haoran and Emperor Qin, could not help but ask. Chapter 9:37. In the Hengduan mountain range. After leaving these words, Yu Haoran took out his purple cudgel and looked gravely at an extremely ugly first tribulation quasi-venerate golden lion beast with sharp claws slowly walking over from the depths of the mountain range. Human, Hui Lao just said that if you agree to reconcile, not only will he help you dissolve the blood oath formed by the Heavenly Ways rules, he will also give you a large amount of rare treasures from the Hengduan mountain range. The golden beast stopped about 2,000 meters away from Yu Haoran and said in an extremely friendly manner. However, its ugly face and sharp claws that occasionally flashed with cold light made it not a suitable target for negotiation. You are just a bastard fox with an impure bloodline. How dare you say that you can dissolve the blood oath formed by the heavenly Tao? Do you really think that I, Yu Haoran, am stupid? In the face of the golden lion beast's goodwill, Yu Haoran could not help but sneer. Furthermore, if I destroy you quasi-venerate beasts, I will be invincible in the entire Hengduan mountain range. Then, all the rare treasures in the mountain range will be mine to take. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, the golden lion beast's amiable tone instantly turned sinister. That means that the negotiation just now failed. What do you think? Yu Haoran asked with a cold smile as he held the purple cudgel tightly and bent his legs slightly. If that is the case, then you can die. The golden lion beast, whose upper body was slightly bent forward, suddenly straightened its body and roared with a ferocious expression. Yu Haoran, be careful. Just as the golden lion beast straightened its body, Thowling realized that its sharp claws had suddenly disappeared. He immediately realized that the golden lion beast had sensed the power of laws and hurriedly warned. The golden lion beast has mastered both the metal and speed laws. When the two laws are combined, it will form a metal speed, law martial technique that can ignore the obstruction of space. Just as Thowling's warning fell, 10 sharp claws emitting cold light appeared like hidden weapons in front of Yu Haoran's 10 vital points. Yu Haoran, who had already expected this, did not panic at all. His bent legs suddenly exerted force, and before the 10 sharp claws pierced his vital parts, he directly soared into the sky. Skyward strike! When Shao Chun reached his maximum height and started to descend, the purple staff infused with his spiritual sense locked onto the golden lion beast. Then, the staff technique with the might of a peak first tribulation quasi-emperor struck at the golden lion beast's head. Damn it! Seeing that Yu Haoran had not only successfully dodged the trap it had set up in advance, but also used the opportunity to execute a terrifying staff technique, the golden beast roared furiously. The 10 sharp claws that returned to his palms immediately condensed into a huge claw that was more than 30 meters long and exuded a strong cold air. Then, it soared into the sky to meet the purple stick that was rapidly approaching. Boom! Creak! As the purple stick and the sharp claws collided, there was a violent roar in midair. Following the violent roar, the 30-meter-long sharp claws were directly broken by the purple stick. After the sharp claws were broken, the purple stick's power did not decrease at all and directly struck the golden beast. Before the golden beast died, it could not help but let out an unwilling roar. Landing heavily on the ground, Yu Haoran looked at the golden beast that had been smashed into meat paste, and a strong, murderous aura gradually rose from his body. Then, he raised his head and looked into the depths of the mountain range. He took a step forward and roared, "Kill!" Following the word kill, the strong, murderous aura condensed into a huge and majestic divine beast, Swanee. It roared and charged into the depths of the mountain range. Roar, hiss, roar, squeak. As the divine beast, Swanee roared and charged into the depths of the mountain range. For different kinds of roars immediately came from the depths of the mountain range. The roars resounded through the sky, causing the thousands of people surrounding the Hungduan mountain range to change their expressions immediately. We have lost 5 quasi-venerables in succession. It seems that the old fox in the depths of the mountain range is angry and intends to use the method of besieging to deal with the prince consort. Old Man Zhang, who was standing in the air on the east side of the Hungduan mountain range, said to a middle-aged man who was about 40 years old, but whose aura was not inferior to his and whose appearance was 70% similar to his. "Grandfather, you have fought side by side with the prince consort. I wonder if you know much about his strength and methods?" Nodding in agreement with Old Man Zhang's speculation, the middle-aged man looked at Yu Haoran, who was holding the purple stick tightly and whose aura was getting stronger and stronger, and asked with great interest, "Unfathomable." Old Man Zhang took a deep breath and told the middle-aged man his feelings. His expression was solemn as he warned the middle-aged man. "Layer, although you have successfully passed the body tribulation and mind tribulation and have mastered the bloodline martial skill of the Zhang family, if you were to fight with the prince consort, I believe that you would not be able to withstand 5 moves. Therefore, no matter when in the future, no matter what the reason is, you must not be an enemy of the prince consort." "Yes, grandfather." The middle-aged man, who was called Layer, answered quickly, but the contempt in his eyes showed that he did not take Old Man Zhang's words to heart. Old Man Zhang did not say anything about this. This was because he knew that Yu Haoran was too young and did not have a strong reputation. The young geniuses of the southern region might be a little afraid of him, but the middle-aged experts were not aware of his strength for the time being. Only when they really came into contact with him and saw his various heaven-defying methods would they put away their contempt. Sister Fangling, do you think something will happen to Haoran? Hiryu asked as she watched the two First Tribulation quasi-venerate exotic beasts and two quasi-venerate exotic beasts with perfect nomological laws rush out from the depths of the mountain range. They forcefully tore apart the divine beast Tao, Wu condensed from the evil aura, and rushed toward Yu Haoran with murderous intent. Ryu, don't worry. Sure Fangling comforted her with a different look in her eyes as she looked at the 12 demon gods standing at different positions in the Hengduan mountain range. Not to mention these 4 exotic beasts. Even the overlord of the Hengduan mountain range, the old fox with a second tribulation quasi-venerate cultivation, is definitely not Haoran's match. In fact, Sure Fangling did not say that Yu Haoran, who had condensed the 12 ancient demon gods with the help of the 12 ancient divine beings' ominous formation, could easily defeat Emperor Qin, who had passed the third tribulation. Of course, the premise was that Emperor Qin did not use the Emperor's sword in his hand. That's good. Hiryu could not help but heave a sigh of relief when she saw Sure Fangling's extreme trust. She continued to watch Yu Haoran, who was already fighting with the 4 exotic beasts. Haoran, be careful. Qin Lingfei secretly prayed as she watched Yu Haoran, who was waving the purple cudgel in his hand and fighting the 4 quasi-venerate exotic beasts. Chapter 9:38. In the Hengduan mountain range. Clang! Accompanied by a crisp cry, a bright red blood phoenix appeared above the Hengduan mountain range like a bolt of lightning. Then, the blood phoenix revealed its true form, causing everyone to gasp in shock. Lung family. Looking at the young girl, standing in the air above the Hengduan mountain range, Sure Fangling could not help but frown as she muttered to herself. Sister Fangling, is this Lung family very famous? After hearing Sure Fangling's muttering, Hiryu felt a sense of crisis and asked. This was because she noticed that the young girl, standing in the air above the Hengduan mountain range, had been staring at Yu Haoran. Her eyes were filled with infinite tenderness. It was obvious that she had deep feelings for Yu Haoran. The Lung family has been passed down for a period of time. They were the descendants of a godly realm blood phoenix in the middle of ancient times, and the Lung family's ancestor after they married. Sure Fangling explained with a serious expression. The Lung family's strength is far beyond that of the great Emperor Qin kingdom. It is even comparable to the Yushu Temple, one of the 7 top forces. Sister Fangling, why have I never heard of such a powerful family? The Yushu Temple could be said to be the strongest force in the Tianxian continent. Since its strength was comparable to the Yushu Temple, it should be famous. However, Hiryu did not have any information about the Lung family in her memory. This made her very puzzled. Ryu, there are too many secrets hidden in the Tianxian continent. It is far from what you know. After hearing Hiryu's doubts, Sure Fangling sighed softly and said with a heavy tone, seeing the divine beast Tao Wu, which he condensed with a strong evil aura, being torn apart by the 4 quasi-venerable realm beasts in the depths of the mountain range. Yu Haoran sneered and waved the purple staff in his hand, overturning rivers and seas. As Yu Haoran waved his purple staff, it gradually condensed a vast and endless power that resembled an ocean. With a roar, he charged directly towards the 4 quasi-venerable realm beasts. Although he wasn't an exotic beast that had transformed into a monkey, his ancestral witch body was closer to the ancient monkey emperor's physique. He could unleash close to 60% of the overturning seas and river staff technique's might. The strength of the overturning the seas and rivers staff technique, which was at 60% of its power, was close to that of a peak First Tribulation quasi-martial venerable. As a result, Yu Haoran did not fall into a disadvantageous position even when he was surrounded by 4 quasi-exalt beasts. Instead, he gradually gained the upper hand as the battle went on. The shockwaves formed by the overturning the sea staff technique heavily injured a crimson forest horse that possessed the bloodline of an ancient Pegasus and had reached perfection of a loss. The heavy punch that followed directly smashed it into a pulp. Using the head of the purple stick, after knocking away the tail of the blood-toothed rat, the curved body of the stick directly smashed the blood-toothed rat that had passed the soul tribulation into a meat patty. Lightning flash and thunder roll. Just as Uhauran was killing the crimson forest horse and the blood-toothed rat in succession, another lightning leopard that had passed the body tribulation overdraft its soul force and demonic chi. Then, it fused the law of thunder that it had comprehended and launched its strongest attack with a law martial technique. Quickly retreating a few steps, Uhauran looked at the countless tiny lightning dragons formed by the law martial technique. He opened his mouth wide and directly swallowed the countless lightning dragons into his body. Of course, even if he activated the power of his bloodline inheritance, he didn't dare to resist the lightning dragons formed by the law martial technique with his weak body. The reason why he forcefully swallowed them into his body was because he directly guided them and temporarily suppressed them in the Victor. Although the Victor wasn't his natal magic artifact, after more than a year of contact, the Victor had already been tainted with his own aura. As long as the Thowling didn't attack, no matter how he used the Victor, it wouldn't be considered a violation of the rules set by the Heavenly Tao. Seeing the law martial technique that it had carefully prepared being swallowed by Uhauran without causing any harm, the lightning leopard couldn't help but feel a trace of fear and wanted to turn around and flee. However, right at that moment, a purple rod that contained the power of a First Tribulation quasi-martial saint directly traversed the distance between them and instantly appeared above its head. Before it could use the law of lightning to escape, it was heavily smashed into two halves. At the same time, the destructive power contained in the purple rod directly destroyed its divine soul. Even the strongest blood-toothed rat and lightning leopard had been easily killed by Uhauran. The remaining 8-legged black spider gritted its sharp teeth and directly burned its divine soul and demonic chi. Then, it stretched out its 8 sharp spider claws and quickly charged at Uhauran. It wanted to self-destruct and perish together with him. Uhauran could not help but sneer as he looked at the 8-legged black spider, whose eyes were scarlet and whose body was emitting a strong will to die together with him. The purple rod in his hand instantly lengthened. With the help of the strong physical strength of the ancestor sorcerer's body, he directly sent the 8-legged black spider, who had burned its divine soul and demonic chi, flying into the depths of the mountain range. Boom! As the 8-legged black spider self-destructed, a deafening roar came from the depths of the Hungduan mountain range. Woo! Accompanying the deafening roar was a continuous wolf howl that resounded through the clouds. It seems that the second overlord of the Hungduan mountain range, the Green Wolf, who had advanced step by step to the peak of the First Tribulation Quasi-Emperor with an ordinary bloodline and physique, intends to take action. Shi Fangling, who was very familiar with the Hungduan mountain range, reminded Hiryu, Sister Fangling, who is stronger, the Green Wolf or Hauran? Although after Shi Fangling's comfort, Hiryu was no longer nervous. When she heard Shi Fangling's praise for the Green Wolf, she couldn't help but become nervous again. If he uses the 12 demon gods, the Green Wolf won't be a match for Hauran at all. Seeing Uhauran, who was holding the purple rod in his left hand and planning to fight the Green Wolf head-on, Shi Fangling said with a lack of confidence, if he doesn't use the 12 demon gods, Hauran and the Green Wolf should be evenly matched. Hearing the wolf howl from the depths of the mountain range, Elder Zhang asked the middle-aged man, Lair, how strong is this Green Wolf? If he survives another tribulation, Lair will definitely not be a match for this Green Wolf. The middle-aged man, called Lair, said with a solemn expression. Since that's the case, let's watch carefully how Prince Consort kills this Green Wolf. Elder Zhang could tell that his grandson valued the Green Wolf. so he could use this opportunity to show him Howren's methods and make him put away the contempt in his heart. Accompanied by the wolf howl that resounded through the clouds, Howren saw a green wolf the size of a mountain slowly walking out of the depths of the mountain range. What a pity! Ever since he entered the Hungduan mountain range, the phrase, "what a pity," seemed to have become his catchphrase. As long as he saw an exotic beast, he would sigh with regret. The most ordinary bloodline and the most ordinary physique can actually advance step by step to the first tribulation quasi-emperor realm. Chapter 9:39. In the Hungduan mountain range. After hearing the Thaling's sigh, Howren felt nervous. At the same time, a trace of respect emerged in his eyes as he looked at the mountain-like green wolf. Ordinary bloodline, ordinary physique, and ordinary background. To a living creature that had embarked on the path of martial cultivation. How cruel and realistic was this? Howren, who had experienced all of this in his previous life, deeply understood. If it weren't for the restriction of the blood oath formed by the heavenly law, Howren wouldn't even want to fight with the green wolf and give it a chance to grow. He wanted to see if it was like what the Thaling Chi had said, that it could become an emperor in the future and become the emperor of the ordinary wolf clan. Powerhouse of the human race, hello. Feeling the respect in Howren's gaze, the green wolf, who was originally filled with killing intent, withdrew its dense killing intent and greeted him with a very solemn attitude. Powerhouse of the wolf clan, hello. Letting go of the purple staff, Howren also responded with a solemn attitude. Powerhouse of the human race, I, Green Wolf, have lived in the Hungduan mountain range since I was young. In my life, I have seen too many geniuses and powerhouses of the human race. However, those geniuses and powerhouses were just a bunch of trash with an undeserved reputation. Chapter 9:40. In the Hungduan mountain range. When the purple staff smashed into the green wolf's body, the green wolf exploded. However, there wasn't a single sound in the air. This made Howren feel a bit puzzled. After all, Green Wolf was at the peak of the First Tribulation Venerable Realm. Even if he couldn't withstand the power of the overturning sea cudgel, he would at most be severely injured. It was impossible for him to be killed so easily. Therefore, Howren quickly withdrew the purple cudgel and quickly observed Green Wolf's body. Then, a serious expression appeared on his face. This was because Green Wolf's body didn't turn into countless pieces of flesh. Instead, it turned into countless pieces of blood and gradually formed a sea of blood. This is impossible. The tower spirit cried out in disbelief as it watched the green wolf explode and gradually use its own blood to form a sea of blood. Thaling, what secret technique is this? Howren asked solemnly as he watched the sea of blood gradually surround him. Howren, this isn't a secret technique. It's the power of law that Green Wolf comprehended. Thaling forcibly calmed himself down and asked with a complicated tone. Howren, do you remember the blood demon that I mentioned before? Of course I remember. Howren quickly replied as he held the purple cudgel tightly in his hand and looked at the sea of blood that had already arrived beside him. After all, the devouring secret technique that he and Wu Xingjun cultivated was inherited from the blood demon. The blood demon was able to create the devouring secret technique because of his devouring blood physique. It was also related to the power of law that he comprehended and controlled. The power of law that the blood demon comprehended and controlled is the 13th law in the mysterious sky continent, the blood law. The power of law that Green Wolf has turned into a sea of blood is also the blood law. Thaling, what should I do next? Howren, who was completely enveloped by the sea of blood, immediately felt the soul power in his sea of consciousness, the origin power in his dantian, and the power in the ancestral witch's body being forcefully sucked away by the suction force formed by the sea of blood. This caused him to panic and immediately ask the Thaling for a solution. Thaling ignored Howren, who had fallen into a state of panic, and continued to explain to himself, The sea of blood formed by the blood demon is not only boundless, it can even devour experts of Emperor Wu's level. It's not just relying on the law of blood alone. After that, he looked at Yu Haoran, who was completely engulfed by the sea of blood and whose soul power, origin energy, and physical strength were rapidly depleting. He couldn't help but remind him, Yu Haoran, the way to deal with the blood sea is very simple. You just have to use the secret devouring technique that I taught you to directly devour the energy in the blood sea. At this point, Thowling looked at the sea of blood with a hint of pity in his eyes. However, the result of this is that Green Wolf's soul will be destroyed, and his corpse will not even be left. Thowling, although I respect Senior Green Wolf's experience, the blood oath formed by the Heavenly Ways rules means that either he dies or I die. Yu Haoran could feel the pity in Thowling's tone, but he couldn't bear the loss of power. He couldn't care less. He immediately sat down with his legs crossed and began to use the secret devouring technique to absorb the energy in the sea of blood. Haoran, seeing Yu Haoran engulfed by the sea of blood, Qin Lingfei was the first to rush to the restriction barriers set up by the Heavenly Ways rules. She shouted loudly as she used the strange fire that she had mastered to attack the restriction barrier. Yu Shixiao. The second person to rush to the restriction barrier was Lin Mingyao, who had severed ties with the 100 Qi Gate. She transformed into a blood phoenix and cooperated with Qin Lingfei to attack the restriction barrier set up by the Heavenly Ways rules. Just as Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao joined forces to attack the restriction barrier, the roar of a sword came from the west side of the Hengduan mountain range. Accompanied by the ear-piercing roar, a peerless beauty with shoulder-length hair and a voluptuous figure, whose looks didn't lose out to Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao in the slightest, displayed a sword technique that shocked everyone present. She began to attack the restriction barrier in front of her. This is the power fluctuation of a sealed supreme-grade, emperor-level Dharma artifact. Just as the sword in the peerless beauty's hand transformed into a silver dragon, Shi Fangling, who was firmly blocking He Ruyu and preventing her from attacking the restriction barrier, was stunned. This is the demon-slaying sword technique that was created by the Amethyst Sword Emperor tens of thousands of years ago. When the silver dragon began to attack the restriction barrier with a special technique, Shi Fangling's heart couldn't help but tremble. Then, she directly pulled He Ruyu to the west side of the Hengduan mountain range. At this moment, dozens of sharp wind blades, together with the peerless beauty's sword technique, attacked the restriction barrier together. After the dozens of sharp wind blades disappeared, a young girl with a veil on her face, who was obviously a peerless beauty, was standing on the back of a wind-tailed fox with 6 huge tails and countless gusts of wind surrounding its body. This is the wind-tailed fox with the highest bloodline of the ancient 9-tailed celestial fox. Shi Fangling, who was rushing to the west side of the Hengduan mountain range, immediately cried out when she saw the 6-tailed celestial fox. Then, she looked at the girl standing on the wind-tailed fox, and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. She turned to look at Yu Haoran, who was surrounded by a sea of blood, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. Although I know that Haoran's charm is very strong, but it's not enough to attract the attention of 4 peerless beauties. Looking at the peerless beauty wielding the sword, the veiled girl standing on the wind-tailed fox, and then turning to look at Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao, a trace of sadness flashed in He Ruyu's eyes, which then turned into determination. The moment the wind-tailed fox appeared, the gray fox that had been crawling on a gray rock in the depths of the mountain range suddenly stood up, wild with joy on its face. Then, it looked at the blue-throated peaked tiger standing beside it, and a trace of ruthlessness flashed in its eyes. Stop! Seeing that they were desperately attacking the restrictive barriers set up by the heavenly Tao, Emperor Qin, who had just reacted, immediately appeared beside Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao. As he shouted loudly, he reached out his hand to stop the two, and then forcibly control them away from the restrictive barrier. Stop! Shi Fangling, who had also appeared beside the peerless beauty and the veiled girl, used her powerful strength to stop the two, and also brought them away from the restrictive barrier. Fei, do you know what you were doing just now? Emperor Qin asked with a gloomy face. Just because of a moment of distraction, Qin Lingfei actually made such a risky move. I want to save Howren, Qin Lingfei said with her eyes full of tears. Chapter 941. In front of the Hungduan Mountains. Fei, little girl from the Lung family. Do you know how dangerous your actions were? Looking at his stubborn daughter and the strong Lin Mengyao, Emperor Qin pointed at the barrier of the Hungduan Mountains and asked, Isn't it just a barrier set up by the rules of heaven to prevent people from entering the Hungduan Mountains? Lin Mingyao's strength had improved by leaps and bounds due to the stimulation of her father's bloodline. At the same time, her arrogance made her reply to Emperor Qin in a rather indifferent tone. You! Lin Mingyao's indifferent reply made Emperor Qin so angry that he didn't know what to say. If the person who replied just now was Qin Lingfei, he would have scolded her loudly. However, the Lung family behind Lin Mingyao was a powerful existence that Emperor Qin's kingdom couldn't afford to offend for the time being. Therefore, after taking a deep breath, Emperor Qin reminded them solemnly, The rules of heaven are sacred and inviolable. Those who dare to defy the rules will not only have bad luck, but also have their divine souls destroyed. Eventually, their souls will dissipate, and there will be no trace of you in the world. After hearing Emperor Qin's solemn reminder, Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao looked at each other and found fear in each other's eyes. Thank you for saving us in time, Father. Thank you for saving us in time, Your Majesty. After that, Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao hurriedly thanked Emperor Qin. On the west side of the Hungduan Mountains, after hearing Shi Fangling's warning about the consequences of offending the rules of heaven, the beautiful woman and the young girl also looked at each other and hurriedly thanked Shi Fangling. How should I address you? Shi Fangling waved her hand to indicate that the beautiful woman and the young girl didn't need to be polite. She began to inquire about their origins. Perhaps it was because of Shi Fangling's help just now, which made them feel grateful. Or perhaps it was because of Shi Fangling's natural affinity that made them subconsciously want to be close to her. Therefore, in the face of Shi Fangling's interrogation, the beautiful woman and the young girl didn't hide anything and introduced themselves. The Sword Without Trace, disciple of the Beastmaster Peak of the 100 Qi Gate, greets you, Senior. Kong Yunga, disciple of the Merit Palace of the 100 Qi Gate, greets Senior. With the secret devouring secret, Yu Haoren found that the suction force of the Blood Sea was gradually weakening, which made him couldn't help but feel happy. Then, he began to speed up the operation of the devouring mystic technique. While successfully negating the suction of the Blood Sea, he began to devour the energy in the Blood Sea. The Blood Sea was created by Qin Lang using the laws of blood and all of his essence blood of the green sword. Beast was Beastmaster's blood. In less than a minute, he had successfully broken through from the early stage to the middle stage of the second stage of the Martial King realm. 2 minutes later, his physical body successfully advanced to the early stage of the 5th grade Martial Emperor. As the devouring power of the secret devouring technique grew stronger and stronger, the consciousness of the green wolf that had transformed into the Blood Sea gradually realized that something was wrong. While forcibly extracting the pure spiritual energy of the mountain range to replenish the Blood Sea's energy, the green wolf's consciousness began to investigate the reason for the loss of the Blood Sea's energy. When he saw that Yu Haoren was using some unknown secret technique to forcefully devour the energy in the Blood Sea, Green Wolf's expression changed. Then, without any hesitation, it mobilized the rule of blood and godly soul to stop the other party from devouring the energy in the Blood Sea. His powerful soul power, combined with the law of blood, began to gradually restrict Yu Haoren's ability to devour the Blood Sea's energy. Yu Haoren, I will now teach you the true devouring secret art. Sensing that Yu Howren's devouring secret technique was being suppressed, Thowling put away the pity in his heart and began to think for Yu Howren in all aspects. Thowling, thank you. Even if he used all his strength to increase the devouring power of the secret devouring technique, he could not break through the increasing suppression power in the Blood Sea. This made Yu Howren gradually anxious. Just as he did not know how to deal with the increasing suppression power, Thowling's timely help made him immediately thank him excitedly. Devour like the heavens, devour like the earth, heaven and earth like a cage, devour like the sea. Due to the restriction of the heavenly ways rules, Thowling could not use his godly soul to condense a technique and directly transmit it into Yu Howren's godly soul. He could only tell him word by word to let him slowly understand the true devouring secret art. His mastery of the simplified version of the secret devouring technique and his increasing comprehension ability allowed him to quickly understand every word and sentence that Thowling said. As he comprehended the true devouring secret devouring technique, the originally suppressed secret devouring technique's power gradually increased. Soon, it surpassed the suppression power and started to devour the energy in the Blood Sea again. Sensing that Yu Howren's devouring power in the Blood Sea was getting stronger, Green Wolf had no choice but to use his soul power to increase the speed and quantity of the pure spiritual energy in the Hungduan mountain range. However, compared to the devouring power that was several times stronger, the speed and quantity of the spiritual energy that was being extracted by overdrawing his soul power was getting worse and worse. Elder Hui, lend me a hand. Green Wolf knew that he could no longer suppress Yu Howren's devouring power by overdrawing his soul power. In order to survive, in order to fulfill Yu Howren's promise of becoming the first Wolf Emperor in the ordinary Wolf clan, Green Wolf could only ask for help from the stronger Gray Fox. Unfortunately, the Gray Fox only looked at Green Wolf coldly in the face of his request for help. He did not even care about it. Elder Hui, there's no need for you to interfere in my battle with the human experts. I just need you to completely release the suppression of the pure spiritual energy in the depths of the Hungduan mountain range, and let me use the pure spiritual energy to increase the power of the Blood Sea. Seeing that the Gray Fox had no intention of lending a helping hand, the Green Wolf immediately lowered its request. However, the Gray Fox's cold indifference made Green Wolf feel despair. He could not help but scold angrily. Elder Hui, you were the one who suggested the plan to use Green Flame's secret devouring technique to encircle and annihilate the human elites. The execution of the entire plan was also planned by you. Now, in order to carry out your plan, Old Black, Old Lie, and the other 11 brothers have already sacrificed themselves. Are you going to give up on me, Green Wolf? Faced with Green Wolf's scolding, the Gray Fox suddenly stood up and looked like he was going to attack. Green Wolf could not help but feel joy in his heart. However, the Gray Fox's next action caused the joy in his heart to instantly fall to the bottom. Chapter 942. In the Hungduan Mountains, the blue-throated peak tiger was completely caught off guard by the Gray Fox. Then, the Gray Fox extended its two sharp front claws and stabbed into the blue-throated peak tiger's forehead and abdomen. The star-sucking great technique is ranked 7th among the top 10 demonic secret techniques. It's also one of the few evil secret techniques that can increase one's strength by devouring the energy of living beings, just like the secret technique of devouring. Although Green Wolf's request for help did not alert Yu Howren, who was using the secret technique of devouring to devour the pure energy in the Blood Sea, it alerted Thowling, who had been observing the Blood Sea. Thowling could not help but shout when he saw the Gray Fox forcibly absorbing the soul power and demonic power of the blue-throated peak tiger to increase its strength. Thowling's shout immediately attracted Yu Howren's attention. While Green Wolf was distracted and unable to control the power of the Blood Sea, Lin Huang's divine thought penetrated the Blood Sea and saw the Gray Fox with its front claws in the blue-throated peak tiger's forehead and abdomen. Then, his expression changed. After absorbing the soul and demonic power of the blue-throated peak tiger, the gray fox's aura became stronger and stronger. It vaguely felt like it was about to break through the second tribulation quasi-venerate stage and advance to the third tribulation quasi-venerate stage at any time. The gray fox's sudden attack on its companion immediately attracted the attention of the people watching the blood sea from the periphery of the Hungduan Mountains. When they saw the gray fox using the star-sucking great technique of the top 10 demonic secret techniques to absorb its companion's soul and demonic power, their expressions changed. It seems like the blood sea formed by Green Wolf using all of its essence blood, and the rule of blood is no longer able to suppress Howren. That old fox has no choice but to find a way to increase his strength. Emperor Qin explained to Qin Lingfei and Lin Mengyao solemnly as he watched the blood sea shrink and the gray fox absorb its companion's soul and demonic power. "Father, do you think Howren is a match for that old fox?" Emperor Qin's explanation made Qin Lingfei both happy and worried. He was happy that the Green Wolf, who had transformed into a sea of blood, had taken the initiative to seek help from the gray fox. This meant that Yu Howren, who was shrouded in the sea of blood, was not in danger. Instead, he was gradually gaining the upper hand. The gray fox was already a second tribulation quasi-venerate. After absorbing the spirit and demonic power of the first tribulation quasi-venerate blue-throated peak tiger, its strength was unfathomable. Yu Howren was still no match for it. This question of yours has truly stumped us. Looking at Qin Lingfei and Lin Mingyao's expectant gazes, Emperor Qin couldn't lie against his will to deceive them. In the end, he could only bitterly smile and shake his head. "Grandfather, it seems that the prince consort that you think highly of will not be able to escape death today." As a quasi-martial saint who had gone through 2 tribulations, the middle-aged man, called Lei, felt the increase in the gray fox's strength the most. He knew that after absorbing the essence of the blue-throated peak tiger, the gray fox's strength had increased by at least 10 times. Even if he used the martial techniques of the Zhang clan's bloodline inheritance, he might not be a match for the old gray fox. Therefore, even if it would incur the displeasure of his grandfather, the middle-aged man, called Lei, had no choice but to remind him. "Lei, I have a different opinion from you. Instead, I feel that the old fox's actions just now will make it die even faster." Faced with the middle-aged man's conclusion, the old man, surnamed Zhang, shook his head and gave a different answer. Looking at the frosty Lin Mengyao, a trace of infatuation flashed across the middle-aged man's eyes as he said, "Is that so? Then let's wait and see. Sister Fengling, will you Xiang be all right?" Seeing the gray fox's aura grow stronger and stronger, even Wind-tailed Fox, who was standing on her shoulder, felt a trace of fear. Kong Yung comforted Wind-tailed Fox as she asked worriedly. The sword without trace also looked worriedly at Shi Fengling. "Little sister Jingya, little sister Wuhan, don't worry." Facing Kong Yung and the sword without trace's worries, she, who truly understood the origins of the 12 demon gods, comforted them confidently. Unless this old fox's strength can truly break through to the second stage of the Exalted Realm, it won't be a match for Howren. In the Blood Sea, Fouling, when the Blood Sea disappears, the demon gods will enter the body. Yu Howren said solemnly as he watched the body of the blue-throated peak tiger gradually shrivel up. "I understand." Nodding his head to indicate that he understood, Fouling used the method of oral communication to instruct the second clone of the demon gods to pay attention to when entering the body, so as to prevent any mistakes during the process. Ignoring Fouling and the second clone, Yu Howren closed his eyes and continued to increase the power of the devouring technique. Borrowing the pure energy in the Blood Sea, he rapidly increased his cultivation and the grade of his body. If the gray fox did not help, Green Wolf would only feel sad and disappointed. After all, compared to the coldness of human nature, the selfishness between beasts was not inferior to that of humans. However, The gray fox had used a demonic secret technique to absorb the soul and demonic energy of its companion. This was something that Green Wolf could not accept. Looking at the blue-throated peak tiger that had been completely sucked dry, Green Wolf howled angrily. Whoa! After howling, Green Wolf's consciousness, which had transformed into Green Wolf, glared at the gray fox and threatened. Old fox, you forced me to do this. Then, it turned to Howren, who was in the blood sea, and pleaded. Powerhouse of a human race, Green Wolf has a request. Senior Green Wolf, please speak. Howren did not care about how dangerous the battle had been, nor did he care that Green Wolf wanted to use the blood sea to take his life. Faced with Green Wolf's request, the respectful Howren immediately replied, No matter what, I have to destroy this damned old fox's soul and leave nothing behind. Green Wolf said murderously, Senior Green Wolf, this is not a request. Howren shook his head. Because according to the blood oath of the heavenly Tao, I have to kill the gray fox. No. Green Wolf shook its head and said with a voice full of hatred, My request is not for you to kill it directly, but for you to use all the torture methods you humans have. Let it experience a life worse than death before ending its life. Senior Green Wolf, the gray fox's grade is too high, and its strength is too strong. I do not dare to take too much risk. I can only promise that I will try my best. There is no need for him to use any torture methods invented by humans. Just the secret torture method he had obtained from certain ruin in his previous life was enough to let the gray fox know what it meant to suffer a life worse than death. However, after absorbing the blue-throated peak tiger's essence, the gray fox's strength had reached the peak of the second tribulation quasi-venerate realm. It could turn the tables at any time. Therefore, Howren did not want to put himself in danger because of Green Wolf's request. Chapter 943. In the Hungduan mountain range. Although Howren did not give a 100% promise, his promise to do his best was enough to move Green Wolf. After all, he was still a mortal enemy with Howren, and Howren had no obligation to agree to any of his requests. As Green Wolf gave his final promise before his death, the body of Green Wolf that was formed by his consciousness exploded. Then, an extremely powerful devouring power was formed from the sea of blood. Not only did the devouring power begin to forcibly draw in the pure spiritual energy in the entire Hungduan mountain range, but even the blood, soul power, and demonic power of the strange beast that had submitted to the demon god's roar were forcibly drawn out and quickly merged into the sea of blood. This is an opportunity! Thowling exclaimed in surprise when he saw the endless pure spiritual energy, demonic power, soul power, and blood essence fusing into the sea of blood, causing the sea of blood to expand and the pure energy contained within to increase. Howren, Green Wolf is burning his own soul to forcibly draw out the endless vitality in the entire Hungduan mountain range to increase the quality of the sea of blood. As long as you use the great devouring technique to absorb and refine this pure energy, not only will it allow your cultivation and physical body to break through consecutively, but it will also increase your own foundation. Although Howren had already guessed Green Wolf's actions, he did not expect his gift to be so generous. After taking a deep breath, he used his soul power to envelop his voice and said, Senior Green Wolf, I will remember your kindness in my heart. I will definitely fulfill your wish. As Howren gave his promise, countless green lights suddenly appeared in the entire Hungduan mountain range. The green lights quickly expelled the black gas gathered by the great 12 divine fiends formation, causing the entire Hungduan mountain range to be filled with vitality. Although Howren often causes trouble, his opportunity makes me very envious and jealous. Looking at the sea of blood that was filled with pure energy and had expanded by more than 3 times, Emperor Qin could not help but sigh with envy and jealousy. Qin Lingfei, who was also pleasantly surprised for Howren, could not help but ask expectantly, Father, Do you think Howard can rely on this opportunity to directly become a martial venerable? In the face of Qin Ling Fei's whimsical idea, Emperor Qin slapped his forehead and said with a wry smile, Fei, do you think that martial saints are weeds on the side of the road? Do you think you can break through just because you want to? The reason why I mobilized the entire nation to wage war on the southern region, aside from wanting to increase the overall strength of the great Emperor Qin's kingdom, is also because I hope to gather the boundless fortune of the entire southern region and use it to break through to the martial venerable realm. With the help of Green Wolf's burning divine soul and gathering the essence of the entire Hengduan mountain, Howard was able to raise his cultivation to the peak of the 6th grade of the martial emperor realm. That's already incredible. As for the martial revered realm, at this point, Emperor Qin couldn't help but sneer. In your dreams, Your Majesty, even if Yu Shixiang can't break through to the martial venerable realm this time, with his cultivation speed from the martial disciple realm to the martial emperor realm in just over a year, it's only a matter of time before he surpasses you in the future. Perhaps it was Emperor Qin's sneer that made Lin Mingyao feel dissatisfied and sarcastic. This, Lin Mingyao's sarcasm, didn't make Emperor Qin angry. Instead, it made him fall into deep thought. When he first met Yu Haoran, his cultivation seemed to be at the peak of the 9th grade of the martial master realm. Now, it had only been half a year since they first met. In such a short time, his cultivation had broken through the martial ancestor realm and reached the martial emperor realm. Moreover, Emperor Qin also knew that Yu Haoran cultivated both qi and qi. He paid attention to the combination of hardness and gentleness. Since his cultivation had broken through to the martial emperor realm, the grade of his physical body must have also reached the martial emperor realm. With such a monstrous speed of advancement, perhaps it was just as Lin Mingyao had said. If Yu Haoran wanted to catch up and surpass him, it would only be a matter of time. Thinking of this, Emperor Qin suddenly felt a sense of urgency in his heart. In the depths of the mountain range, the gray fox's expression instantly turned gloomy when it saw Green Wolf burning its own soul and gathering the endless vitality of the mountain range to help the human who was bound to destroy the quasi-venerable realm exotic beast in the Hengduan Mountains. Feeling the rich and pure energy in the blood sea, it couldn't help but feel a rush of excitement. If it used the absorbing star's great technique to absorb the pure energy in the blood sea, it might be able to help it successfully pass the last of the 3 tribulations. However, thinking that the blood sea was formed by Green Wolf's own blood essence, and worrying that Green Wolf had left behind a method to deal with it before he died, the gray fox was in a dilemma. However, when it sensed the aura of a breakthrough in the blood sea from time to time, the gray fox knew that it had to act in advance. Otherwise, the human whose strength was constantly increasing could very well turn the tables. That was Green Wolf's dying request. Thinking of this, the gray fox directly soared into the sky and headed straight for the blood sea. Yu Haoran, even I now suspect that you're the illegitimate child of the heavenly Tao. Seeing the gray fox rushing over and already using the absorbing star's great technique, Thowling was pleasantly surprised. At the same time, he also felt envious and jealous of Yu Haoran's luck. Thowling, what do you mean? Yu Haoran asked in confusion as he sped up his absorption of the pure energy in the blood sea. The so-called absorbing star's great technique, which is ranked 7th among the 10 great demonic secret techniques, is actually modified from an incomplete devouring secret technique. The difference in power between the two is like heaven and earth. Thowling explained excitedly as he looked at the gray fox that had already rushed to the blood sea, but was cautious not to enter the blood sea. Instead, it was using the absorbing star's great technique to absorb the pure energy in the blood sea. Furthermore, because the absorbing star's great technique and the devouring secret technique share the same root, the complete devouring great technique is the nemesis of the absorbing star's great technique. Thowling, You mean that I can use the devouring great technique to counter that gray fox? Yuhauran asked in surprise after hearing Thaling's explanation. That's right. Thaling reminded him solemnly after nodding his head in confirmation. However, don't use the devouring great technique to deal with that old fox for the time being. Don't alert it. Wait until it's completely immersed in the pleasure of absorbing the pure energy in the blood sea. Then use the devouring great technique to deal with it secretly. Got it. Nodding his head, Yuhauran directly closed his eyes. While comprehending the essence of the devouring great technique, he continued to increase the power of the devouring great technique. Boom, boom. With two powerful auras rising in succession from his body, Yuhauran successfully broke through the early stage of the 5th grade Martial King realm with the help of the pure energy in the blood sea. His physical body also advanced to the early stage of the 7th grade Martial King realm. Chapter 944. In the Hungduan Mountains, in the Blood Sea, Yuhauran, get ready to do it. Using the pure energy of the Blood Sea, Yuhauran had just consolidated his power after the breakthrough when the Thaling and the victor suddenly reminded him. After hearing the Thaling's reminder, Yuhauran directly got up and then quietly approached the gray fox by paddling. When he was 3 meters away from the gray fox, he sat down again and carefully felt the power of the absorbing star's great technique. Following the direction of the loss of the pure energy of the blood sea, he soon felt the power fluctuations produced by the gray fox's absorbing star's great technique. Without the slightest hesitation, Yuhauran directly operated the devouring great technique. While absorbing the pure energy of the blood sea, he also began to devour the energy formed by the absorbing star's great technique. As the pure energy continued to improve its strength, the gray fox felt more and more confident that it could overcome the physical calamity that had troubled it for many years. But at this moment, it secretly felt that something was wrong. It seemed that the devouring power formed by the absorbing star's great technique was constantly decreasing. The fox's cautious nature made it instinctively want to stop the operation of the absorbing star's great technique. But it was shocked to find that the absorbing star's great technique was not under its control at all. This was not the most important thing. The most terrifying thing was that the absorbing star's great technique that was not under its control began to reverse. In other words, it was extracting the energy in its body and forcibly integrating it into the blood sea in front of it. To stop the reversal of the absorbing star's great technique, it needed to know what was going on. So, the gray fox forced itself to calm down and immediately spread its divine sense into the blood sea. Then, it saw Yuhauran, who was only 3 meters away from it and had 7 vortexes on his body. Human, you're courting death. Although it did not know what kind of secret technique Yuhauran was using, the gray fox was very clear that the reason why the absorbing star's great technique was not under its control must be related to the 7 vortexes that appeared on Yuhauran's body. So, the gray fox cursed angrily and then began to use the Fox clan's martial arts, intending to kill Yuhauran by force. However, it had forgotten one thing, and that was the restrained absorbing star's great technique. Not only did it forcibly extract the energy in its body, but it also restricted the mobilization of soul power and demonic power in its sea of consciousness and dantian. Therefore, without the combination of soul power and demonic power, the Fox clan's martial technique was just an empty shell without any power. It did not have any effect on Yuhauran. Damn it! Cursing inwardly, the gray fox forced itself to calm down and think of a way to get out of this predicament. However, as the soul power and demonic chi in its body were rapidly being sucked away, its feelings of panic made it unable to completely calm down. It could only become more and more anxious. In the end, it had no choice but to take out a top-notch pill with patterns that could improve one's state of mind. After swallowing the report, he borrowed the power of the pill to quickly calm down his panicked state of mind. He quickly found 2 solutions. Human powerhouse. As long as you are willing to stop the secret method of controlling the reversal of the absorbing star's great skill. I can agree to any of your requests. The first method was to use temptation and threats to force the human in front of him to voluntarily stop, using the secret method to restrain the star-sucking great technique. Really, hearing the Gray Fox's request, Howard asked with a half-smile. As an elder of the Fox clan, I will keep my word. Due to the influence of the Blood Sea, the Gray Fox did not see Howard's half-smile. It thought that its temptation just now had moved the other party and hurriedly promised excitedly, "Destroy your Danteon and destroy your soul. I wonder if you can agree to this request." Howard sneered as he made his request. At the same time, he continued to increase the power of the absorbing star's great technique to extract the pure energy from the Gray Fox's body. "Brat, you are courting death. Destroy your Danteon and wait until you lose your demonic power. Destroy your soul and wait until you lose your soul power." Howard's request, just now, was for it to destroy its own cultivation. Wasn't this clearly playing with it? This caused the Gray Fox to angrily curse, and then viciously threaten. "Brat, do you know who I am? Aren't you just a bastard with an impure bloodline?" The angrier the Gray Fox was, the more unstable its emotions were, and the more energy it would extract from its body. Therefore, Howard, who discovered this situation, continued to mock and ridicule it, making it even angrier and more agitated. "Brat, only by grinding your bones to dust can I relieve the hatred in my heart." It was precisely because of its lowly birth that the Gray Fox was bullied in its family. This made the word bastard become its reverse scale, and it was a taboo that no one could mention. Therefore, Howard's mockery just now not only made the Gray Fox even more furious, but also lost control of its mind and almost rushed into the Blood Sea. However, the pill's power that had not been completely consumed allowed it to finally regain its senses. Subsequently, the Gray Fox discovered that the pure energy that had been extracted from its body during this period of time had not only caused it to lose the pure energy that it had just absorbed from the Blood Sea, but also the pure energy that it had absorbed and refined from the blue-throated peaked tiger. In other words, the energy that it had risked universal condemnation to obtain was all given to Howard as if it was a wedding dress, leaving it both furious and hateful. Still, faced with the danger of its own energy being extracted, it had no choice but to force itself to calm down and threaten viciously. "Brat, I'm from the Central Region's Green Hill Fox clan and a direct descendant of the Fox clan's Grand Elder. Old Fox, if you had nothing to do with the Green Hill Fox clan, I might have left you with an intact corpse." Seeing that the Gray Fox actually dared to threaten him with the Green Hill Fox clan, Howard promptly rebuked it with killing intent. "But since you're from the Green Hill Fox clan, this young master here will pull out your tendons, skin you, and send you straight to the Green Hill Fox clan. I'll show those animals who fear chaos that this is the consequence of daring to wreak havoc in the world." Being able to sense Howard's deep hatred for the Green Hill Fox clan, the Gray Fox knew that using its backer to threaten him to stop using the secret technique was definitely not going to work, which was why it could only use the second method. However, not only would the second method cause its ability to drop by 30%, it would also damage its own foundation and seriously affect its subsequent ascension in grade, which left it rather hesitant. Still, when it realized that the energy that it had painstakingly cultivated was being extracted faster and more, it finally decided to use the secret technique. Tail substitute Soul Break. With a low growl from the Gray Fox, the tail behind it extended to the front. Then it suddenly broke off and quickly merged into its body. Soon, a silhouette rushed out of the Gray Fox's physical body. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.